I don't like
For
to
real.
be like very industry wise or anything like that. It's kind of like a break. So I don't know about you, but I have like webinar and Zoom and digital event fatigue.
I was gonna say you got to be overwhelmed with everything going on because I
Yeah.
mean you went from like YouTube and doing your own stuff to like now A Cloud Guru and like got to be a professional now.
I
I've been
mean,
catching some of your stuff.
I it's a nice balance with like the stuff that I do on YouTube and then like the super industry stuff that's out there.
Yeah,
And then I think ACG is like in the middle. Like we try to keep it casual, but there's only so much that you can do when you actually like work for like a business and a company, right?
exactly.
But yeah, hold on. Did I go live? Yeah, we're good. All right, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so we typically just talk about like anything and then people in the chat just like bring up stuff and if we want to address it, we do. If we want to
Nice.
ignore it, we do. Um, but yeah, man, how are you?
I've been good. I've been good. Let me tweet it out, the link. Let me
Yeah, yeah,
try.
yeah. I want to make sure we're live everywhere. I literally just hopped off a meeting.
Oh man.
The majority of my team works in Australia, so like the time difference right now with daylight savings and everything like that is crazy. All right, I'm gonna make sure it's live everywhere and we're good to go. Oh yeah, cool. All right. It's there. Did you know LinkedIn has a live feature too?
Yeah, they launched it like I want to say like 6 months ago. And that's what I like about StreamYard is because you can launch it to like a Facebook page, but I think you can also do it to a Facebook profile.
I didn't know that.
Um, it might be like a premium feature.
I don't use Facebook though, so maybe I should. I don't know.
No, you shouldn't.
I closed my Facebook like maybe 3 years ago. No, probably before that, 4 years ago. And then every now and then I'm like, "Ah, am I missing out? Because I see people get like crazy views on their videos and stuff
Yeah,
like that. And I think to myself like, oh man, maybe I'm missing out. But you can't keep up with everything. That's one thing I've learned. It's like,
right.
like when Clubhouse came around, I was like, oh, I totally got to jump on this. And then after like a week, I was like, I'm not doing this.
It was tough. I catch one every once in a while, but I was like, how long is this thing gonna last? Because one, like clones are popping up. Like Twitter Spaces came up, and
Yeah,
then the other part was there was like this war about the accessibility and it only being on iPhone. So
yeah, for sure.
I was like, I don't even know if this is gonna last. But I guess Twitter tried to buy it for 4 billion.
Well, it's also like after um like the pandemic, like we're all like
Yeah,
situated out. Are people going to really just be on their phones, just like talking, that
exactly.
kind of thing?
I was like,
So
nope, not
I
I.
don't, I don't know.
You want me to
I
tag you and a Cloud Guru or just you?
just me. This is
Okay.
my thing. On Clubhouse, it's also like everyone feels like they need to share their entire story when they want to answer a question. I don't know. It's always like let's unpack this, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you just answer the damn question.
Just it gets very like they answer it like politician style.
Yeah.
Where
Oh
it's
my
just like I'm
god.
not gonna answer you directly. We're gonna have to take a little walk and follow me on this journey.
I think this is in response to having Facebook. You're not. Your mental health is probably better for not having it.
Exactly. What up, El Carlton? Thanks for joining. But yeah, it's you're not missing out.
Okay, good, good, good. All right, man. I don't think have we ever spoken like on a proper call. I guess this is a proper call. We've like tweeted at each other kind of thing, and we've known about each other for a while now. But I don't think we've ever had like a conversation.
We I want to say that sounds about right. Um, yeah, yeah, I've hopped on your live streams before, but this is our
Yeah, yeah.
first time actually talking. That's crazy. Like, I wonder how many, like, because of the pandemic, like, how many people out there that I consider like good folks that I chat to and talk with that I've never met in person.
Yeah, I that's a good thing about like social media.
Yeah,
Tech Twitter especially. It's like you can meet great people, but then again, it kind of feels a little shallow, right? Like a little superficial. It's like you know
yeah,
all these people, you have all like these followers and such, but like what like to what extent? So I'm just trying to get like more people on this kind of this like platform and just talk to people. So I'm glad you're here. Also, you're obviously into tech, but you're also super easy to talk to and like you're funny. And I feel like those personalities need to be like maybe highlighted isn't the right word, but I don't know. You make the space like friendlier, right? And that's
Oh, I
what
appreciate that.
we're all about, right? That's why, yeah, I want to talk about your YouTube, but I mean, catch me up because you were a software engineer, still are. What are you doing?
Yeah,
Give me an
yeah.
intro, of
So, um, definitely. So first and foremost, thanks for having me.
course.
But yeah, I was at John Deere for a little bit,
Mhm.
and I switched from it. It's funny because I switched from an agency world. For those of you that don't know my full background, which is like all of you, probably, I went from like being a waiter to I modeled for 6 years, and I did that. That was my career
You
for
modeled?
yeah,
Oh my
yeah. So,
goodness!
like full on like yeah, travel the country agency life. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
But that was like kids, pre-kids, and then when
Okay.
I had my daughter, I did that for like a year afterwards. And then from there, my agent at the time, she was like, "Look, let's just say that something happens to the moneymaker. You know, what are you gonna do?" And I didn't know. So at the time, the iPhone was just coming out, and I was like, I'm gonna learn to code. How hard could it be? And like
Cool.
dun dun dun, all this time later, I'm still learning how to code. But no, fast forward, I worked at an agency. I worked at an enterprise,
Mhm.
hated it. And then worked at another agency. And then that was recently. I left there a couple months ago. So I've been fun employed for the past 2 months, and um, really getting into, or rather, I've always been into cloud, but mixing
Mhm.
in cloud with a lot of the front end stuff. That's sort of the niche that I like to follow.
Yeah.
Is front end plus cloud, and make that sort of the new full stack, and obviously helping the community and being there for folks. That's me.
You're big into JavaScript?
Yeah, that's my bread and butter. So I
Damn.
know is because are you .NET?
I mean, when I do code, it is .NET, but my focus is mainly like infrastructure kind of stuff, proper backend. No, I mean, no backend, like, yeah, I guess infrastructure. When I do code, it is .NET,
Yeah.
which is in like never to the extent of like full stack development, anything like
Hmm.
that. Primarily with just like serverless functions and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I had been thinking about picking up JavaScript because at the previous live stream that we did, there was like
Do it.
three people doing JavaScript, and my thing is like, though everyone tech Twitter makes it seem like JavaScript is the only thing that ever exists in the programming world,
That's so true, and it's not
and
true at all.
and it's not true, but it's also like it's not straightforward to just pick up like, all right, do this, do this, do this, and that's like a solid ground. Everyone's going to give you a different answer on how to start, which resources and that kind of stuff. And I think it's like the one language in the one area in tech where it's like so confusing to get started.
It gets a lot of like you hit it right on the head where folks will be like, just pick up JavaScript. I'm like,
JavaScript for the
what do you
win.
mean just pick up JavaScript? Like it took me years, and that's like just to get into the feel of it. I mean, I hear Python is very accessible for getting started with.
There we go.
Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say that JavaScript is easy. Um, Maybe it's easy to hack away with, and it's easy to build stuff, but to actually like know it, um, I don't know. But you can Google your way pretty far.
I also have very little interest in web
Oh,
development.
the truth comes out. It's like if I'm being real, I really don't care about that thing.
No, honestly, I very much like the cloud space that I'm in with like infrastructure and serverless to an extent. But
Yeah,
and then create content around that kind of stuff. That's I'm like good there. I
yeah.
code when I have to, and I learn more coding stuff if I have to. But I just have like no interest in web development, which I feel kind of like an outlier saying because again, like tech Twitter will
No,
make you think like web development is everything. But anyway, you touched on a bunch of stuff. What was your actual first job in tech? Like
in
what
tech,
was yeah.
I was working at my local newspaper. I was a data visualizer. So I used JavaScript, and jQuery was the big thing at the time.
Mhm.
So I was creating data visuals. The hard thing about that was you create all these visuals, but then the next day there's a whole bunch of like new. What up, Andrew? I appreciate the comment. The next day there's like new news, so you throw away
Mhm.
what you just built.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did a lot of mapping there, a lot of just UI facing stuff.
In terms of like learning, were you
Hmm.
self-taught? Any college classes or stuff like that? College degree?
No, none. I went to school to be a teacher. Early childhood
Wow.
education was my major. I dropped out after 2 years. I went to school really for track and field and women, if I'm being honest. But I mean, so that didn't last too long. But after that, that's when I was like, I'm gonna be this model, and the career took that path, and then until I left the agency life and got into tech.
Wow. Well, that teaching thing is interesting because it's kind of coming full circle with the stuff that you're doing on YouTube and like creating content.
It's
And I can
crazy, isn't it?
see how like the way like the changes you are making to your channel. I can see how it like your teacher like your interest in teaching is coming through, right? Like
Yeah.
if you would compare like my channel to your channel, you look a lot more and present yourself more and you're an actual like true teacher versus me just like blabbing on like YouTube, right? Like
Your stuff
sharing
is super helpful.
to an extent, but I think the stuff that you wanted that you actually do now is the stuff that I want to learn and like grow into doing. I guess I just
Gotcha.
have to get through this like phase that I'm going through now. But yeah, all right. So you left your previous engineering job and now you're doing your own thing. Is that the plan? Like you're trying to figure it out on your own or
I told my fiance, I said, look, give me give me 2 months. Like I just want to take 2 months, work on my branding, work on my audience, and really just sort
Mhm.
of define myself. The tricky thing about an enterprise is that it's so big, you don't have time for a personal brand. It's like I
Yeah.
created a whole bunch of content and did a bunch of projects, or did one project there. So then you kind of get bored, and then you're a consultant, right? But
Yeah.
you work on a bunch of projects, but you can't list any of them because it's the consultant life. Um, so I was like, let me just do my own thing. I like talking. I like
Mhm.
teaching. Um, I think I'm decent at it. So in
Yeah.
this 2 months, I got 2 weeks left. In 2 months, I want to go ahead and just do just that. And she was cool with it. She's an amazing support, and that's where I'm at right now.
Cool. I I always encourage people, and I because I've done this myself. Like I left my cloud engineering gig back in August, I think. Yeah, right after I got MVP, and I've always wanted to try like my own thing and consulting and stuff
Yeah,
like that. And after I got MVP, I had got like so many people reaching out, like, "Hey, can you work on like I got this work, like stuff like that." And I left my job, um, started doing a bunch of like Azure consulting kind of stuff, and also building my YouTube. Like I kept doing tutorials and stuff like that. And honestly, that time there, like doing that kind of stuff helped me realize what I actually want to do with my career. And it's
yeah,
like one of those risks that it's like so scary because especially being in the States, being self-employed is like kind of sucks. Like with like health insurance and kind of and that stuff.
yeah.
Um
I think one of your videos was about that, right? It was like you made that transition,
yeah.
and it was kind of cool, like watching your journey. You were just like, hey, it's working out. Here are the pain points, and here's what I love about it. It was a really good perspective, going back to like the value that you do provide on your channel. It was really good.
I mean, I try to keep it real and like just be honest with like the stuff that I'm trying and always present myself as like who I am and not like try to
Hmm.
fake it. I think a lot of people like put too much pressure on presenting themselves as like experts or professionals with their content and it just comes
Yeah,
off like that's the recipe to burn out. But yeah, back to the consulting thing. Like that life is interesting. It's like it's a model like that I would want to do eventually. But then, like, after doing it for a couple months, I realized, like, I can benefit a lot from, like, being on a team because in terms of, like,
yeah.
my career, I'm still really early, like, in the really early stages,
Hmm.
of, like, figuring all that kinda stuff out. And then, just because you're mentioning, like, doing your own thing and creating your own content and stuff like that. And then when I was like, "Well, maybe I do wanna, like, move forward with a career in creating technical content," but, like, that's such a scary jump going from engineering to technical content because of you're a teacher pretty much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also like, well, if I'm creating content, like when am I like sharpening my skills or like will people actually take me seriously and all that kind of stuff? Like what's your mindset? Like, I see you grinding, you're putting out videos all the time now.
Yeah,
Uh
it seems like it.
and doesn't it seem like more work than actual engineering?
It's crazy the amount of misconceptions that there are because there's that I hate it. What is it? those who can't do teach mantra.
I hate that so much. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
I hate that so
Uh-oh.
it is so dumb. It's but yeah, keep going. We'll touch on
Yeah.
that, but keep going. Yeah.
It's well, I guess to maybe break into it a little bit now,
Yeah,
it's completely false.
of
And
course.
the amount of work that goes into creating this technical content, it's easy for someone to get into this field and to get a lot of breadth because you can Google very far and you can look up articles about any subject, but to actually go deep onto a subject and be able to not just understand it for your own sake, but to
Mhm,
present that to others in the hopes
mhm.
that they also understand it, you have to know it really well.
Exactly.
It's a huge challenge, and I envy people that are just killing it in this field because I'm. It takes a lot of work, and reading the documentation. I sort of think of that iceberg meme where it's just like people see the success, and then they
Yeah,
have like all the words of like what you had to do to get to that success underneath.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's creating content is even in like my like I do it for a living now, and whenever I'm put on specific projects, I'm like, all right, there's certain areas that I know I don't know much about, and I kind of try not to touch them because it's like, oh, I know I'm gonna have to.
It's a
If I have
rabbit
to
hole.
make, yeah, if I have to make like a 10-minute video on something, it's gonna take me like 2 weeks to like
Yeah,
because I have to like get hands on. I have to actually read about this stuff, like
break it.
spend a lot of
One
time
of
doing it.
yeah,
But yeah, build it all out, and then I can actually talk about this, right? So it's like, whereas when you're engineering, you're building solutions that are already like either defined for you or you have some sort of experience with and stuff like that. And then you don't really have to explain anything because you're working with a bunch of engineers who should already know what's going on.
exactly. You have
Um,
a support system around you. And not to say that we don't, but it's easy. A lot of companies instill at my last company, they had a hard like 15-minute rule. If you're stuck on something for 15 minutes, like reach out
mhm,
to somebody. You're wasting time at that point. And when you're diving into this stuff, you don't have that luxury.
exactly. Yeah, because who are you going to ask? Like other content creators? Like,
Post it on Twitter and hope for a reply.
no, yeah, this the role that I'm in now is definitely way more. It's challenging in different ways, but I still think it's more challenging than like my engineering gig.
Yeah.
And like I don't think I've ever said to anyone, so yeah, first time saying that live. But but yeah, creating content is it's like fulfilling in an interesting way, but it's also like the amount of stuff you learn on your own for your own self is fantastic.
It's
Like the amount
crazy.
of projects that I'm building from on my GitHub and stuff like that that eventually turns into content for the role is like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a space that I think like with dev advocates and what other kind of roles that are like dev advocate sort of related. Well, all those kind of roles are kind of like exploding now.
Yeah.
It's a nice medium to be in. It's like you're not fully technical, it's not 24/7 technical, you're not
Mhm.
24/7 content creating, you're like right in the middle. So I think it's a space that a lot of people are going to start to explore a lot more
That was
now.
the hardest part for me is, and I was fully upfront with all of my employers. I was like, look, I love that 90% of the way um style. I was like, but that last 10% of a project is the hardest part for me, where you have to like nitpick the design and the features and make
Mm,
sure everything's durable. I was like, yeah, I hate that part. I don't like it. I can take you 90% of the way. You're gonna waste time on me if you're looking for somebody to really polish things off. And that's just a safe space that I really, really enjoy.
yeah, I absolutely. I think the very beginning of a project of something that I'm not necessarily too comfortable with, I'm like, I man, like loop
Hmm.
me in the middle and then I'll kind of like fizzle out by the end, like you mentioned. But if it's something that I do enjoy, like I genuinely enjoy or I'm
Hmm.
genuinely interested in, I'll dive in like at whatever point I can.
Yeah.
Cloud advocate. Is that a role now? Cloud
Yeah,
advocate?
definitely. Cloud advocate, DevRel, developer relations.
Dev
Um,
advocate?
yeah.
Ev- Evangelist? Is that the word?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can be an evangelist,
And
and it's all just kind of thrown in.
the same, right?
Yeah.
Well, but there's also like technical writers and I don't know. There's a but like that whole space of creating technical content is it's like it's I think it's super important because it I think in terms of being inclusive and like bringing more people in,
Yeah.
there's so much power in that space. Um
You're not going to have a successful product if it's really powerful, but nobody knows how to use it. you're going to
Yeah,
need people to create that content. Um,
absolutely.
and then also, it's a great way to reach out to customers and find out what their pain points are
Mhm.
because we can create stuff and people are like, "Hey, I tried it, but what if I wanted to do this?" And then now you're directly helping the customer and also creating content in that regard.
Absolutely. And it's also like bringing people into your product or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Like a perfect example, like my personal experience is I picked up Azure Functions because I had to build the solution and I was the only person and I wanted something that I could own end to end, but not do like a whole bunch of infrastructure work and touch like because we were working at that company, we were working with like servers at like 2008 and like if you built anything on those things it was going to die. So I was like, all right,
The worst.
let me see something I could build fully cloud native and whatever. So Azure Functions, and then I started following like the advocate teams on like the Microsoft advocate team for the functions and like all those people, and I would read their content, super friendly, super easy to get into, and it
Yep.
was because of them that I got into that and then eventually built my channel, eventually got to where I'm at because of like how friendly they were in. So the power that they have to bring in people who into tech who wouldn't necessarily like get into it for I guess in the first place
Hmm.
I think is fantastic too, right? Let me scroll through some of these comments because I feel like I might have missed some of them. David says hi all.
What up, David?
Uh Cedar says hello. I think we put this one up here. Python. Do you any Python?
I have done a hello world in Python. I know enough to talk the lingo, but I do not program in Python.
All right.
I can
So you're
like pip install.
JavaScript. You're
Yeah,
JavaScript in and out pretty much.
I am across the entire stack. And then I do infrastructure as code, but
All
primarily
right.
JavaScript.
JavaScript for the win. Oh, this one's in terms of remodeling. I think you
Yeah.
didn't you tweet something out with
I
your
yeah,
picture and the dude from what's his name?
Renee. Renee Jean something. But yeah, he's leaving Bridgerton, which if for the folks that haven't seen it, it's this, I guess, like really sexy show on Netflix. And he's like the male stud on it, but he's leaving it for whatever reason. And folks have told me that I look like him.
There
Like
you go.
so there it is.
In a couple months we'll see like how I turned my YouTube career into Netflix or
Right.
why I left engineering for Netflix or something
For
like that, right?
Netflix, but like not
Yeah.
tech related.
Okay. What about how I made 100K just using HTML and CSS? What is that? Is that like a Twitter meme or something?
I think it is talking about like maybe a blog post. I don't know, Praveen. Let us know. Um,
Coding is all math? No,
ooh.
definitely not.
Um,
What do
how
you
much
think?
math in your entire programming career? I know the answer, but just for the audience, in your entire programming career, like how much math have you actually used?
I mean, is logic math like? But
Yeah.
it's
Throw include that. Like even if you throw that in there.
it's I don't know how to answer that question because like what do you mean by math?
I
Like
think maybe
like
purely
calculus and
academic math.
oh no, nothing.
Yeah.
No. What about you?
um, I needed to know because I work on the front end, when I'm getting dimensions of the window, I guess I have to divide like the viewport by two.
Oh, so you
Um,
just press the calculator and then that's
yeah,
what you're talking
honestly.
about? Yeah.
But that is it.
Basic math operations can be enough. But even that, like
Even
all that
yeah,
is done for you. Like you
yeah.
need to know the syntax. You need to know how to get there. I guess maybe that or when to use it. Yeah, but the actual like calculations and stuff like that, no.
Yeah, maybe we um are misguided, David. So if you can give us a scenario where
Yeah.
math is needed, like definitely let us know. Maybe we're missing something.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain, I guess, fields that you probably would need, like machine learning kind of stuff.
Hmm.
You would need more math, but not all coding. Definitely
No.
not.
And the
This
broad spectrum, no.
this one is how's your girlfriend doing her? All right, so background on this one. My girlfriend got into product management and like particularly in like the machine learning space.
Oh, nice.
Um, so she just took like I don't know a bunch of courses or something like that. And then I told her like, why don't you take the AI 900, which is the introduction to AI Azure fundamentals. Um, so then I was kind of like setting her up in Azure and that kind of stuff. Like a couple weeks back. So yeah, she's still doing it. She's like taking it day by day. It's funny to see her frustrations were what I was going through like years ago. But it's cool now that I can like walk her through and explain stuff like that. So it's like full circle in a way. Yeah, but
Yeah.
thank you for asking, David. She's doing well. I think this is in regards to what you mentioned, that your wife is supporting you to do your own thing
Yeah.
for 2 months. I'm not sure my wife would be supportive, mostly because we lose the house. Now she says, scratch that. She says she would, but not financially.
It's definitely a conversation. You don't want to be like, hey, honey, I'm not gonna work for 2 months. Like, you want to talk about that openly.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to be in a place where you have someone super supportive, or you have like in my case, like I have like very supportive girlfriend, and my parents are also super supportive.
Yeah.
Which not I understand not everyone has. Yeah, the first 90 take 90 of the time, and the last 10 take 90% of the time.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly. I love that.
that's great. Yeah, that's a great way to explain that thing that you're saying. Yeah, it's always those little details that like
Hmm.
that freaking gets you. We doing call-ins. Uh, sure. Any advice for beginners trying to get into cloud security engineer? This will loop us into how you got into cloud. You want to give us a little background?
Yeah, for sure. It was almost the same way that you did. So in JavaScript on the web, you start making API calls,
Mhm.
and you use like a third-party API. So you're bringing in that data, but it gets to a point where you need something specific, or maybe you have like two APIs. For those of you that aren't aware, you can go to like Kanye.rest. It's like a Kanye REST API. You can head to that, and then you can also do like a dad joke API. So like I can has dadjoke.com. But let's say you wanted it so that you like hit up one endpoint and you get both of those like data sets together.
Mhm.
And like you're not gonna find that anywhere on the internet. You have to build it.
Yeah.
So I needed an easy way to build that. And I came across this thing known as a serverless function at the time, and then cloud functions, I think other providers call them,
Mhm.
and AWS calls them Lambda. So that was my sort of gateway drug into the whole cloud space, was just
Lambda.
with this, yeah, a serverless function. A lot of folks will say like whatever bucket supporting system you have,
Mhm.
AWS has S3,
Mhm.
and but Lambda was definitely mine.
Yeah, mine was Azure Functions.
Yeah.
And I back when I was studying for like my AWS cert, like the first one I got, I did do some Lambda stuff, but it never interested me until I mean functions. I mean serverless didn't interest me until I actually had to build something,
Hmm.
which I was also because I was working on this concept for another video where I'm going to explain like everything that I've learned in like my 5 years of learning cloud stuff, but like
Oh, I
divided up
can't wait.
divided up in like years. Like 2016, I had no idea what was going on. 2017, I got into like virtual machines and kind of stuff, and like kind of explained like that.
Hmm.
And then I was thinking like which year was the most impactful in terms of me learning stuff, and that was obviously when I was like a sysadmin and eventually promoted to cloud engineer because I was just getting hands on with so many things. And though Lambda and serverless was like one of the first things I was introduced when I was actually learning cloud, things didn't
Yeah.
really click for me until I was actually doing this stuff hands on at a place, which is why doing things like we're doing this thing at ACG called the Azure Resume Challenge, where I like built this thing and people have to. I built this like challenge and people have to like submit their projects, and it's like a small simple solution, but it's a full solution, and it
Hmm.
helps like with that issue with like, oh, you can't get hands on because you're not at a job, but you can't get a job because you're not hands on kind of thing. So
Yeah, the loophole.
yeah, I was thinking like, man, Lambda was it was also like super early for Lambda because like I think where Lambda is now is like so different than when it was like back in this would have been like 2016ish, like late 2016.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking like, man, it's like it's interesting how many different cloud services you touch and which one is like the most impactful for you. And so it's like everyone has like different answers. All right, so you started with Lambda
Yeah.
and then like you kind of like kept exploring. Right now, what's your favorite service?
Um, I'm in AppSync land. AppSync is a managed GraphQL service that AWS provides.
What is
Um,
GraphQL? Remember,
oh
I'm not
man.
a
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
not a
So I think a lot of us are familiar with REST and your
yeah.
CRUD operations. And then GraphQL is a way, basically says, hey, you know how with REST, you can do like a get, post, update, delete.
Mhm.
GraphQL is like, we're going to give you just whatever you ask for, nothing more, nothing less, just exactly what you asked for. And
Okay.
we're going to break that down into two fields. Like you can query for data or you can mutate the data, which can be those other CRUD operations. And it's a really sort of elegant way to handle it, but it is geared more towards like front end folks. JavaScript folks seem to love it, even though it's based off of any language. But the biggest difference is that it's an actual spec, where REST is just sort of like this implementation that we just keep following.
Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. All right. So you're doing AppSync right now. That's like your thing.
AppSync, yeah. No, I wouldn't say it's my thing. It's my favorite so far. Lambda and API Gateway are kind of my bread and butter currently.
Are you so the service that I hear the most about on AWS is Amplify? That's something that
Amplify,
Nader was working on. Well, used to.
yeah,
I know he's moved on from that. Do you do any stuff on that? I've seen a couple of your videos that have something on
definitely.
Amplify.
So I'm an AWS community builder. And that the way that I got into that program was through Amplify. I was kind of on it since day one.
Mhm.
And I've built a lot of content. I would consider myself somewhat of an expert in that field, but the biggest, I guess, for those of you that aren't familiar, to step back a little bit, it is used to bridge that gap between front end and cloud backend services. So the cool thing about it is that it abstracts away all of these services themselves. So if you want to say, "Hey, I want to host my website," uh, you don't have to say like, "Hey, give me an endpoint, give me like a CDN to deal with, give me an S3 bucket." You just say like amplify add hosting, and it does all that behind the scenes.
Mm.
And if I'm not
Interesting.
mistaken, like Azure has like Azure static sites or something like
Yeah.
that, and that's kind of their take on amplify.
Yeah.
But like if you wanted like a serverless function, like a Lambda, you wouldn't say like, "Hey, give me this Lambda," and proxy to it. You say amplify add API or amplify add function, and then it just does it for you.
See, I feel like you just explained this in a perfect way, which is why you're a great teacher, and which is why you should continue doing
I
that.
appreciate
Like
it.
you made so I'm aware of Amplify and I know of it because of being in the space, but
Yeah,
that's you've probably given the best and most straightforward explanation that I've ever heard.
I
Right.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So so kudos to you for that. Yeah. So I want to talk about YouTube a little bit because this is a space that I'm a big fan of. But I know you're getting into it. What's that grind look like for you? Like what's your process like? I know you're putting out videos like every single day now. You also have your course that you're doing. I want to talk
Yeah.
about that too, because it's something that I've seen you kind of like try different ideas, which is what like I'm a
Hmm.
big fan of. Like you're trying different things, and it seems like this is the one that you're like sticking through and like seeing through. So I
Yeah.
want to talk about that too. Yeah. So how did this all come about?
YouTube was part of this whole branding part. Granted,
Mhm.
I've had my YouTube channel for a couple years now, but unlike yourself, I don't publish, or I wasn't publishing consistently. And
Yeah,
and I would
it's a
say
key.
even now, I'm not publishing consistently. I'm just publishing a lot currently. Um, so in the past 2 weeks, I picked it up where I am publishing every day or every other day. But I guess the long touch is to be doing it for months. So I wouldn't say I'm consistent at it yet, but it's a
I'm gonna share your
grind.
channel right here. All
Yeah,
right. So everyone go to this. How do I put this on the screen? Hold on a second. Yeah, it is a grind. We can. I mean,
I'll
I
speak
don't
on
know.
that
We gotta make.
while you're doing that stuff.
Yeah,
It's a grind because unlike Twitter, where I have like the algorithm down packed, I've been on Twitter for a while.
yeah.
YouTube is like its own beast.
Hmm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so I don't know like the effects of tags or like what keywords or what image to use. I'm just throwing stuff up there and seeing what sticks. Granted, I should probably like read a book or something or ask you. Um,
So
but
the YouTube. Oh man. So I remember being at like the beginning and publishing my first video, and I was like, I have to do that forever until like because
yeah,
it's like you have like you get you know, 5 views, you got 5 subscribers, you got a couple of views, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm never gonna get anywhere. Right? You kind of think like that, but it's like the beauty of YouTube is like you can try and upload. If it doesn't work, especially at the beginning, it's like, well, who cares? No one watch anyway. Let me try something else next, and
Yeah.
then you just literally keep going and going. Honestly, that's the key. Like, I, I think what helps me not get like annoyed at the whole process at the beginning was like not necessarily caring about like, oh, SEO and like clickbaity titles and thumbnails and stuff like that. And I
Hmm.
also think that that's what made like the audience respect me more, because they noticed that like I was just like straightforward right into the video. I wasn't like, hey guys, welcome to
Yeah.
this video. I'm gonna give you an intro for about 2 minutes, and then you know run the clock down to like, I think you have to get like 8 minutes or 10 minutes to get like
I think it's
mid-roll ads
10. Yeah.
and stuff like that, and things like that. I never cared about any of that kind of stuff, and it was also probably because I wasn't trying to make it like my full time thing. I was just kind of like to, I guess, build into whatever it is now.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any secrets. It's like I think your content is like really good, and what I like about it is like you're yourself. Like you're not copying anyone's style, you're not copying anyone's ideas. You're like genuinely just building it. It's also an asset to like the course that you're
Yeah.
doing, to your email course, which I want to get into in a second, because I think that format is very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you're building it as an asset, and it's not necessarily like you're trying, but you're not trying too hard. I don't know. It's great. I love it. I love the voice. I love the like the otter thing. So cute. I like the rebranding that you're doing. I noticed that too. It's great. I hope people come. I put the link up on the screen. Let's see. Did you get any subs?
I
Anyway,
it looks like I just got one,
anyway,
like in this 5-10 seconds.
um, the course. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's it goes hand in hand with what you were saying earlier of like I've tried a bunch of stuff in the past. I
Mhm.
haven't always followed through with all of it,
Yeah.
either like for whatever reason, like work, or just I was too lazy to follow through. Um, and unfortunately, I've had friends like you to be like, "Hey, you should totally do that," or you should definitely hop on this. It's like you're always there when I message something. I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna try and do this project," and you're like, "Do it, like
Yeah.
just do it." So
Absolutely.
I wanted to create during this whole like branding experience that I have, I wanted to um, definitely like provide some value to the community. And
Mhm.
that part came through like a front end developer. One of the biggest feedbacks we hear about Amplify is because it scaffolds everything out for you and you don't have to know those services. At some point, you are kind of curious about what is happening under the hood. And I couldn't find that resource out there that I
Mhm.
liked that was in my format. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to create an email course, 5, 6 emails, and it's just going to go through like the core set of services that front end developers specifically need to know, so that they can level up and transition to the cloud or just become more familiar with the cloud.
Mhm.
We all hear those scary stories, and I think you even have a video on the scary story of like you're new to the cloud, and then you have this like, huge bill, and
Mm.
it's like how do you avoid that? So, what are the things to look out for and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
I think with cloud computing, it's like we were talking about this on the last stream. It's like cloud engineer is such a generic title. All it means is that you're doing something with a cloud, admin, development,
Yeah.
security, whatever it is. Like that's all it means. Like you're touching something cloud related. But the beauty of this space is like your entry level is like anywhere really.
Hmm.
Like if you're from an infrastructure networking background, there's stuff like that. If you're dev, there's a place for that. If you're admin, if you're just like more of like a power user, like the stuff with low code, no code services that are in there, you can get into that way.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what you're doing is like you're basically just taking your experience and then just packaging that into like, oh, let me explain it, make it easier for other people who may be
Exactly.
following those same steps. And I think that's the key with any kind of like successful content, when it's genuine, when it's authentic, when it's like, this helps me, I'm going to package it together and then hopefully help other people, right? And that's why whenever you put out an idea, I remember like all the ideas that you would put out, I was like, do it, man, do it. Because
Yeah.
I stand by the person, and you have like great intentions and stuff like that, and you genuinely want to help. Versus like it's easy for me to tell like when someone's going for like a cash grab, or it's like, oh, I want to make $500,000 because I saw this person do this course, I'm going to do the same,
Right.
So it's different. And like I'm all about like community. I'm all about bringing people in who don't have like the same opportunities. I know you are too. Like we're both big on that, and the only way we can get to that is if we have more diverse like voices out there and content made by more diverse people, like just different
Definitely.
backgrounds, that's how we get more people like us in here. So yeah, I stand for like everything you're doing. If there's anything I can ever like continue to support and such, I'm gonna do that. But yeah, man, that's cool. So you have like what? How many emails planned so far? I got like, I think I've gotten like 4 so far, maybe 3. Is
Yeah,
it 4?
I have 6. It's done now. 6 are going to be going out. I
Hmm.
cover the full stack. So on that latest video, you can see basically how you can add like security to your API endpoints. Um, area and but I take everyone from, how do you what is a function, and that's really what I focus on in the email, and I try to follow it up with one of these videos, which is like, let me explain in just layman's terms, not all the jargon. Let me just explain what it is and what it's about. um Keep it to one service at a time, and then by the end you just have this mental map of
Absolutely.
how the pieces fit together and how they work individually.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I I'm a big fan of like small pieces of knowledge
Yeah.
because that's the way like I learn. So that's the way I'm gonna like create content like like small like spend like your lunch break watching this and like you're good to go, or like spend your I
Yep.
don't know like an hour in the afternoon doing this, right? Because I think in tech we're all about like bullet points on a resume. Like
Hmm.
I know this language. I code all day at work, or I do whatever all day technical thing at work, and then I come home and I do it too. And I'm like, that's not sustainable. Like,
Right.
and we also shouldn't be encouraging that because we all have lives, and you know, and at the beginning, you remember those years when I don't know how long it took you, but you're trying to like get into the field and you're just so frustrated where it's like what do I do, like this course, like what do I learn?
Yep.
It's like creating like these short bits of information like, nicely packaged where it's like it makes things click. It's so valuable, and that's why like YouTube is great. Like this format that you have going with like email. I'm curious as to like do you get responses? Are you able to get responses
Some
from people?
folks have responded back and they asked for like specific content. Like, this was good. And, can you show me this? And how I interpret that is that I was able to provide them with enough knowledge
Uh-huh.
that they're still curious and
Mm,
they want to know more.
that's great.
Um, the hard part about an email course is that it's an email. So it's like with a blog, you can make it whatever length you want, but
Yeah,
nobody's going to want to open up an email and have like a 2,000 words,
of course.
like a full on, but the feedback that I got when I sort of polled my audience was to keep it concise. The tricky part with concise is like, how much value do you actually get when it's just those bullet points? So I don't know if I have it figured out. It just launched last week. So that's TBD on the format. We'll have to play by ear and see. But I think I did my best to hit it on the head.
Here you go. More short content is a need for someone just starting out. Long for content. Yeah, and this is my partner, by the way. I think most people in the chat will know her.
You know,
Um,
April.
yeah, for someone just starting out, long form content can get overwhelming. Oh my goodness, this reminds me like when I was studying cloud like a couple years ago, and everything that was available was just like 30-hour courses because that's just what like
Oh
where
yeah.
the industry was at, right? Like now you have a lot more like short stuff, like just quick tutorials, a lot more YouTube content, stuff like that. Back then it was just like full on like courses on like Linux Academy, A Cloud Guru, and stuff like that, and all the other ones that I'm not gonna plug. And now all the options that we have, it's great, and it's also great that the actual people who are working in the field are like creating that stuff too, kind of like on the side.
Hmm.
um it's like I don't know, it's a great time to get into tech, I would say. Couldn't agree more. At April. Okay, April says hello now. Um
It's like I feel like I've met April beforehand just because she's been on your videos before. She's like, who is this guy? But no,
yeah, yeah.
it's she seems wonderful.
Here's a great, we should put this on a t-shirt. The hard part about short content is that the shorter the content, the harder it is to create. This is also a fact for beginner content.
Yes.
Beginner content is the hardest content to make.
Hmm. And the more seasoned you get in your profession, the harder it is to remember what it's like to be that beginner.
Mhm.
Which unfortunately is the trap with like senior engineers
Yeah.
who make the transition. Is like you lose that ability to talk to the junior folks because you've just been in that space for so long.
Which comes full circle with that phrase that I hate so much is those who's can't teach. It's
Yeah,
like, but
can't
teaching
do
is
teach.
yeah, but it's like teaching is super hard and teaching quality, I guess. I
Hmm.
mean, because you can be a terrible teacher too. Um,
I think we've like us with kids, we found that out with virtual learning. It's like
oh
at the
my goodness.
beginning, I was like,
Yeah.
I can teach my kids. And then I was like, please go back to school.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, have you heard of the Morning Brew, that email newsletter?
The morning brew. I don't think I have.
You should check it out because I've always thought that, and I see like your email course in a similar fashion. The Morning Brew is like the news and like has like a bunch of different topics, but just like highlights. But you get enough to like, oh, I'm more curious about this. I'm gonna go, and it like provides you kind of
Yeah.
resources to look into more. Like I see your like maybe not this exact like iteration, but like future iterations of what you're doing turning into
Hmm.
that, and eventually you have like a cloud computing like morning brew kind of thing. Think would be fantastic.
That'd be cool.
Um, it's like
That'd
super
be cool.
casual. It talks about stuff like stocks and things like that, things that I personally I think are like way out of my league to be like talking about, but then I casually find myself like mentioning something that I've read there, sounding like I know what I'm talking about, but it's just because I read it in the newsletter, right? um hold on, I said I tried creating their 60-second Azure tutorials. Each video took 1.5 hours to edit.
Oh, the editing. It's so hard.
This
So
Yeah, this is
when you create your videos, how do you, well, let me tell you how I do it. I
yeah.
do like the way that Egghead teaches folks how to do it is like you never stop recording. Like if you mess up, like don't stop and then start over. Just pause, pick up where you left off, and then keep going. No matter how many times you have to pause,
Mhm.
just like keep it in one video. But what are your thoughts and what's your approach?
So back when I was doing tutorial, it's different now because like now all I do is just like vloggy kind of just conversation face to camera kind of stuff. But when I was
Hmm.
doing tutorials, I would I would record very little because I was just practicing scripts. I was writing scripts like and practicing talking to myself in the
Oh,
mirror and
gotcha.
like figuring out like, oh no, that sounds like this doesn't sound like me. Does sound like me. Oh, maybe I should emphasize more like this word or like this kind of thing. I'd practice it
Hmm.
multiple times just back and forth. That way when I actually did go and record, I could do it in like one take.
Nice.
Um if I did have to do like multiple, like if I did mess up, I would do like just pause or like not even pause the camera. I would just like pause the thing and then just say it again and then
Hmm.
edit it out later on just so it'd be a little bit more fluid. But yeah, I would practice everything for like the tutorial kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
would like actually do the actual technical demo thing, whatever Azure function thing I was doing. I would do that and like make sure I knew it to the T and then record it. But like I
Hmm.
remember those videos would take me like so long. Like one 10-minute video would take me a week to do.
Oh
Because
yeah.
obviously because I was like working full time too. But it was like, oh man, like you got to research because it's like when you're explaining things, do you know there's like certain words that you take for granted that you understand, but it's
Hmm.
like when you have to explain it to someone, is you actually have to go and look up the definition or like what
Jargon.
exactly, yeah, that kind of stuff, and like how can I explain that better? And then that's like a rabbit hole. It's like, okay, this word, okay, well the definition now includes this word. Like how do I like you keep going back like that thing, right?
You
So
get stuck. Yeah, you're like, how beginner do I need to be?
yeah,
It's tough.
exactly. And then like another thing I wanted to talk to you about was like the niche because it's like, all right, well, who is your audience? Because when you're getting started, like I remember I was getting
Hmm.
started with YouTube. It's like, well, I'm just doing this for me, so I'm explaining it for myself. As like I started growing, and then there was like an audience, and there was like an expectation. It was like, okay, the content that I'm making has to sort of like be a nice balance between what they want and what I actually want to create. And then
Yep.
towards like the end of last year, it turned into like strictly tutorials that I didn't want to do, which is why I like took a pause. And then at the beginning of this year, I was like, I'm just gonna freaking do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Um, and like it's turned out well, but it's like you're balancing so much. You're creating content that you like to do, but also what people want you to do in a way.
Yep.
Because I'm sure you get comments that are like, hey, can you make a tutorial on this?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I had planned like a bunch of other things, but yeah, I guess I can add that to my list, right?
That's like pretty much exactly what I say. Is like I'll put it in my backlog. And like we all know what happens to stuff in the backlog. No,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
it's good because you're right. You created something, people are engaging with you,
Yeah.
and but if if what they want isn't directly related to what you want to do or have an interest in, um, it's like how do you balance that? And where is your exact niche? For me, I have no problem with making a niche or a niche, however you say it, like all the way down. So I say specifically, I am a um, I focus on front end developers wanting
Mhm.
to transition into the cloud,
Okay.
and specifically with serverless technologies. So it's like hyper focus.
Very specific. Yeah.
Yeah, and from there, like it allows me to get so deep into the content because you can get as deep as you want to, while still having the breadth of being like there's still some outlier content that I can work with, but I know who my audience is at that point. And
Mm, mm,
when you're branding yourself, you want to make sure that you're always focusing on your audience. That's one of like the big pillars out there.
it's
Um,
tough though, cause
it
cause
is.
cause you can lose, and this is what I was feeling like at the end of last year. It's like, well, am I creating content that I enjoy, or am I just doing this because people expect it or people want
Hmm.
it, right? And it was extremely frustrating. Um, and because I always like YouTube started as like an outlet for me, and now it's turned back into that. But there was a good time there. I was just like doing stuff because it's like a habit kind of thing. And man, I don't know. It's also like the personal branding kind of thing is like tiring because it's like you have to keep up with it in a way. And there's like a lot of expectation, and with that
Tough.
comes like stress and like, oh well, what AWS thing am I gonna tweet today? What Azure thing am I gonna tweet today? Or
Hmm.
like, oh man, I have some time off, like I should be working on like another video or stuff like that. It's like it catches
And
up
then you
to you,
get burned out.
and then yeah,
It's
you end up getting burned out anyway. So it's um
someone
yeah.
told me there's this podcast, this business, it's called The Business of Authority. And um he said if you're consulting and if you're trying to monetize off of this, so for any folks in the audience who are trying to monetize your brand and your tutorials, whether it be a video or a blog,
Mhm.
he was like, if you don't want to market yourself and if you don't want to put out content that your audience is wanting, that's perfectly fine. Just get a job, because
Yeah,
like that's the whole beauty of having a job, is like you get to just focus on what it is you like doing,
yeah.
and not having to market yourself. But if you want to be your own boss, then those are the things that your job is taking care of that you now have to do.
Exactly. That's funny that you mentioned that because I just turned off all the ads on my channel. Like I think like 2-3 days ago.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm still gonna publish and everything. I'm just gonna keep monetization off just because I was
Yeah.
like I was getting so obsessed with like metrics and things like that. So I have like 2 videos on my channel that are just like they just always get massive views. It's just like it's consistent. Like
Hmm.
it's like evergreen content, whatever. And like some months it's like, oh, I'll make $300, and next month I'll make like $150, and the next
Yeah.
month I'll make like somewhere in between. And I was just like, oh, why is this happening? Like kind of like, and you put so much pressure on yourself, and that's stuff like you don't control anymore, right?
Hmm.
So I just turned that off because I'm actually quite content at like my day job, and like continuing to see through, and like shifting my technical content to being on there, and then YouTube just being like, I guess, the
Your outlet.
people side kind of thing, like where I
Yeah.
come and rant about like, look, let me tell you about this time that I spent $1,000 in Azure by accident, that kind of thing. Um, but you are very right. When I was consulting, like back in the summer of last year, I definitely had to like, what the people wanted is what I had to make, because
Hmm.
I was trying to turn that into like cash, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard, man. And then someone just made a good comment here. Like I definitely feel a tension between making content I think no will get more views versus the content I am more excited about personally. It's yeah, and it's also like, that saying, I don't 100% believe in this, but it's like you do something you enjoy and you'll never work again or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and like with content it's hard because it's like, especially if you're trying to make money off of it. It's like, what if you end up doing stuff that you don't enjoy?
Hmm.
So isn't that why you left your job at the first place? Like, I
Exactly.
don't. It's such a tricky balance. But I mean, I'm glad you're getting into it. Have you ever thought of like getting like a job doing content kind of stuff?
I um I don't want to spoil anything. Kind
Like,
of leave the
okay, so that's a
audience.
yes. That's a yes.
Is
That's a maybe.
I didn't say, hey, it's something as developers we're always looking to see what's on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. Always be interviewing. Like, I think I saw
Yeah.
someone tweet about this or something like that. Like, even if you're like super happy at your job, take that interview. Just you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's crazy times that we're in right now where developers, I guess statistically, will stay at their job for like 2 to 3 years because then you just the quickest way to make more money is to switch companies as opposed to going up the ladder. It's just a different times thing, I guess.
all right. So we'll hear about your updates soon or something like that, right?
Um, TBD, we'll see.
Okay.
What
Well, you won't
updates?
you won't give us nothing? Oh my gosh. I want to see if we missed any
Follow me on Twitter and YouTube
uh
to stay up to date. See, that's how we do it.
are you gonna do any more because I saw your video you did like kind of like a channel update, kind of like a career update kind of
Oh
thing
yeah.
video. Are you planning on doing more of like that kind of side of stuff?
Honestly, that was a really vulnerable
Yeah,
video.
vulnerable. Yeah, yeah. I could
It's
tell.
when it's um when it's tutorials and content, it's easy to be like, this is the face that I need to put on. But when you're bringing folks into your personal life,
Mm,
I have like the deepest respect for yourself and for others that can just be like, hey, here's technical content, but then here's also like the inner me.
yeah.
Um and to be able to just like sit into a camera and do that.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
you're
was a
doing it right now, by the way.
true. Oddly enough, if like conferences,
Yeah.
I do conferences and podcasts every once in a while,
Mhm.
and that stuff doesn't scare me. But hopping into a video and talking to people where like you just I guess never know who's gonna pick it up. I don't know. It's weird. Like that's the area where I'm the most anxious.
Interesting, because you're like so like just suave on camera, like to me. Yeah, right? But honestly, like when people make that comment, like people will say like you're so comfortable in front of a camera to me, and I'm like, well, like deep down, like I'm gonna log off this, and I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, like I need to be in a closet for like 4 hours, right? Like that kind of stuff. So I get where you're coming from, but there is a lot of like I don't think power is the right word, but there's something special with like showing more vulnerability, especially in this field,
Oh yeah.
like having these conversations, putting this kind of stuff out there, and just talking about like I mean, this is me. Like, we're not talking JavaScript. We're not
Yep.
talking AWS. We're like just two people hanging out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like it eases other people into the space as well. Because like from the outside, we all look like a bunch of nerds that don't do anything except like, you know, consume
Code all day.
documentation
Yeah,
and yeah,
exactly.
right. But like these kind of things, like I feel like are helpful. Like I would have loved to watch people just talking about their journeys when I was getting started. Um, I mean, it
It
was there, but it wasn't as much as it is now.
That's a good point because it helps people realize it helps instill that, I can do it too thing.
Mhm.
It's not just like, oh, they're giving me beginner content, great. But without giving the journey behind it, it's like, how do we get people like us to even like take that step forward and want to do it? So you bring
Exactly.
up a good point.
Yeah, it's there's so many tutorials out there, right? And to an
Yeah.
extent, it's pretty easy to like remake a tutorial. Like I go and see like, oh, how to get started with this, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. It's like I want to talk about that too, and I go and do it. That's pretty easy to copy.
Hmm.
But your personal story, like your journey, how you got into this, and like someone who maybe grew up in the same area that I grew up in, or someone who has parents from the same place that my parents are from, kind of thing. Like they already have that way of like not necessarily attaching themselves, but they'll see like, oh, we're kind of similar. Like maybe I can do this too.
Yeah.
Because in reality, it's like, yeah, you can do this. I got into this thing by like, I'm not the smartest person. I'm terrible at math. I barely code. Um, what the hell is Terraform? Like that kind of stuff. Like but I'm here, right? And like that is the message that we're trying to get to like everyone. Like you don't it's not like trying to remove that like the prestige or that those that whatever that image that engineering has. And it's
Yeah,
like
there's this aura that we all have computer science major
mhm.
backgrounds. And I was like, no, I'm self-taught. Like I was a
I
guy
didn't
that
know you
would
were a model. You were a model, dude.
well, like nothing related to tech, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was a server, bartender, and then model. Like that's my background. And I literally just picked up a book and I was just like, let me just follow this. And it was about like iPhone development, and I sucked at it. So I picked JavaScript because it was the thing that I sucked the least at, and that's what brought me into my career.
Is this the same with me with cloud? It's like I had tried. I think I tried like everything, like web dev, I even iOS dev. I said maybe I'm good at like designing things. Like I tried it all, but none of it really. I think none of it clicked enough in my brain for me to be like, yeah, I
Hmm.
want to keep looking at this. And then when I was at the help desk role and like the infrastructure team was there and they could show me stuff on AWS that they were working on, and
Yeah.
like actually explain it in like a person, like not like textbook kind of thing, but like, hey, this is what we're doing. That's when
Hmm.
things started clicking. I'm like, oh, I want to keep looking into that, right? And it's also like I was also looking at like jobs and like the descriptions and the requirements and like the ones for like infrastructure, sysadmin, help desk, those kind of ones had like less requirements than
Yeah.
like there's a software dev one, especially like back in like a couple of years back. So I was like, ah, I guess that's the easiest way out. That's how I got into it, right? I feel like people think like we have like this passion, like wow, code all day, like this is why we're doing it, right? No,
Hmm.
I mean it's also great money, you know.
Yeah, people try to make, well, certain individuals will try to make you feel bad for getting into it for any reason other than like the love of coding.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and people ask like straight up. I was speaking at reInvent and they were like, "Hey, why did you get into like coding?" And I was like, "Because there's a lot of money." Like because
Yeah, facts.
I can take vacations and support my family
Work from
because of
home
the
or kind of
money.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's a totally viable reason to get into it.
There's that's like one of those tweets that goes viral every week on tech Twitter. It's like
Oh,
it's
geez.
totally okay for you to not get into coding if you're not passionate about it. I'm like, well, yeah, let's talk about tech Twitter for a little bit.
All right.
What's your favorite tech Twitter tweet that goes viral like every week
Oh man. I don't know because they get political.
lately?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I don't know about the exact one, but there always seems to be one about um something to do with like a word. And this is like I don't know how deep in this we even want to get to, but like certain words in cloud or in computing, they have racial stigmas tied to them.
Mhm.
And so there's that aspect. But then there's also like the low effort, like grifting tweets that come around where somebody will say something and it's like, you shouldn't do X because of this, and you're a bad developer if you do it.
Yeah.
Where it's like super edge casey. It's like, well, whatever. I don't know.
My
Do you have something more specific?
my favorite one is the what's stopping you from coding like this, and it's like the GitHub squares. You seen that
Oh
one?
yeah.
That one have every and it's like the same screenshot, but it's like some different person every single
Yeah.
week. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why? Why? And I don't know. It's so frustrating because like tech Twitter also helps us have that image, like reinforces that image of like this is our persona. We tweet
Yep.
about this. This is what we do, and this kind of stuff. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of another one. Tech Twitter
Oh,
tweet.
that reminded me of like hustle Twitter's uh tweet. And for those of you like not familiar with Twitter, it's there's not like an official tech Twitter or hustle Twitter. It's just
Yeah,
like segments of Twitters and bubbles that you can be in. But
yeah.
hustle Twitter was in like how it like I don't know, Venn diagrams with tech. It's like you need to be waking up at 4 a.m.
Ah,
and starting your day then, listen to your podcast on 2x speed
in the
and
shower, in the
in
shower, taking a cold shower while
exactly,
listening to
exactly.
that. Yeah,
You need to walk the dog, do it with the podcast on 2x speed.
yeah.
Um, and it's just like find every little opportunity of freedom that you have and fill it with tech because that's how you're gonna level up in this game. And I'm like, that's not true at all. And but it'll have like all the likes and retweets, and I'm just like, and it's the beginner. It'll be like hashtag 100 days of code, hashtag 100
Oh my
like
god.
newbie devs. I'm like, you're teaching an entire segment of your audience how to be like in that zone, and it's not sustainable or healthy.
Yeah, it's I don't know. And I don't understand why it gets well, I mean, we're talking about it, so we're giving it attention. Uh, all right, we'll move past
Yeah,
this
that's a slippery slope.
this it's just frustrating. But anyway, yeah, so like what's next? You're focused on your content, your course. Are you going to do another iteration?
Yeah. So I've had folks. So I my key point in this whole content aspect was to deliver as much value as I could, because I don't know, I've never been in that scenario where I know my own limits. So like deliver until I can be like, wow, that was way too much. And from there, if people want more advanced content, because I'm only scratching the surface, if they want more advanced content, then I can do another iteration, but then
Mhm.
there'll be like a fee attached to it. So you get like the entryway, and then after a certain point, it's just like, hey, this does take time. I have bills to pay, and then we can go from there. And I've been very open on my Twitter of like, this is the game plan, this is the approach I'm taking. I'm
Mhm.
open to all of your feedback and suggestions. And so far, the reception has been pretty good.
Do you ever think you'd do like a full course like a Udemy thing or what
I
else is
am
used for
a
course? Oh,
so
an
I'm an
exec.
instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a workshop in the works with
Mhm.
the folks over at AHAG
Right.
on AWS stuff. And then I'll be speaking at Magnolia JS at their conference. It's virtual this year, but I'll be giving a presentation on some AWS stuff there. So we'll just see we'll just see what happens to it. But I'm gonna ride that train for a little bit.
Man, you can't get anything out of you.
I
That's good. That's good. Well, we're at like an hour and such. I
oh,
mean,
time flies.
sometimes I go on these things for like 3 hours and people just stick through me just talking. Like, because the thing about these streams is like they never have any schedule or anything like that. We just like hop on um and
And
chat and
ask the
whatever.
audience. Do any of you all have questions for us or anything you want us to talk about? Or I mean, we
Yeah.
gave you our background, so what are your
Definitely.
thoughts?
Are you wearing cable ties in your No, this is what do you call this? Hair tie? Hair tie.
Scrunchy?
No, I
That's
think it has to
scrunchy?
be thicker to be a scrunchie.
I clearly have no idea what a
I think this
scrunchie
is
is.
just the hair tie. Did we miss any comments? We might have. Some of the I can't answer, so I just like don't. Scratch
Yeah.
the. We've had like pretty good audience though, about like 20-ish.
Yeah, Monsi had a question earlier. So I'm a beginner in cloud. I've completed AC 900 and AI 900. So what will be the next step?
To become a cloud engineer.
I think we touched on that, right? Is like the space is so big,
That's
and it's
hard.
like, yeah, now that you've gone through those certs, like what interests you, and how much of that can you showcase on your portfolio? So building is a huge aspect.
Yeah, get hands on. Find some projects that you want to do them, and then when you pay attention to the stuff that interests you, and then look into those and like just kind of like pinpoint what you want to keep doing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess that's like the best advice I can give. Tech Twitter feeding beginners the idea that they need to regularly push themselves to burnout to be someone is toxic. This is the biggest hair tie
Yep.
I've seen. What? How is this? No, it's not. It looks doesn't look big, does it?
That looks like a washer that you would put on like a plumbing pipe. It's
It
pretty
kind of looks like a
big.
bracelet.
It's like
Love the convo. Yeah, I love these casual things. It's like
appreciate it, TJ.
and like you're like people like you are the ones that I want to like have like I can have you like as a recurring guest or something like that. We'll just like
Let's do it.
catching up with Michael like or like this is the Michael segment. Um so to get a cloud job all you need are two certs and no you can't like this is why like I get a lot of these questions
Let's talk about certs. Yeah.
because of the nature of my channel and it's like it's not like I dislike them but it's like I can never provide you value because I made the video, I make content around the stuff that worked for me, and I like clearly say at the beginning, like this worked
Hmm.
for me, and like take from it what you can. But it's like where you live, like what jobs are available in your area, like
Yeah.
how much risk are you willing to take, like what kind of things interest you, like are you willing to start from help desk and move your way up, or you don't want to immediately like there's so many variables. I can't just tell you like do this, do this, do this, and then you'll get a job because like I would be lying to you.
Hmm.
Like again, my background. I mean, you shared your background. Like I took a cert, got hands on at help desk job, got sysadmin, did volunteer to be on a bunch of cloud jobs, like worked my ass off, did overtime, all that kind of stuff, and then eventually got promoted. That's kind of like what worked for me. But I can't tell you to like go get this specific certification or anything like that.
Yeah. I
Um,
have 0 certifications.
no,
Um,
Really? Not even
Yeah,
like the whatever the beginner one
not even the
is.
cloud practitioner with AWS.
Cloud
I could
practitioner.
I could get that one if I wanted to, but the thing about certifications is they prove it's like a test, right? It's like a degree. It's like they prove that you can go through the motions. Now they've tweaked them a little bit so that they're more applicable. But
Yeah.
like with AWS, it's mainly just like what can you memorize? So you still have to know the stuff. And going
Mhm.
through like the process of just getting the cert doesn't make it so that you know them. And I interviewed and like even with that, like I interviewed with Amazon 2 months ago. And for those of you that don't know, it's to break it down, it's 6 rounds.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Six
yeah,
rounds
it was. They were like, "All right, when do you want to schedule this?" It was
from like the first call to the end. It's all 6 rounds, or it's 6 rounds after like calls and like
after
those kinds
you,
of.
yeah, your final day of interviewing is
Yeah.
6 rounds.
Okay.
So 7 hours is what it took me. And it starts off with like half personal questions and then half tech stuff.
Okay.
And
Are you allowed to tell us what position you interviewed for?
oh yeah, for sure. I'll tell you all the details on that. It was for a what was it? Developer support engineer for the Amplify team.
Developer support engineer. Okay.
Yeah, so basically a one-on-one style solutions architect where
Okay. Cool.
people will like file issues on GitHub
Hmm.
and you work directly with them to help solve their particular issue.
Okay. Cool.
Um, so go through the process and it's my first like for I don't know what is it like a Fortune 1 company. Um,
Fang.
yeah, exactly. It's Fang.
Okay.
Um, super nervous. You know, I studied up on my algorithms. I knew that'd be a thing.
How long did you study for? I mean, we can get into that too. Like, how did you study? How long did you study for?
Yeah, I
And stuff.
studied for so I guess even to back up from there, like to
Yeah.
even get to that round, I mean, I'm dealing with like supposedly, I don't know the numbers, but I guess there's like hundreds of people that apply, right?
Yeah. Of course. It's Amazon.
Um, I knew it was with the Amplify team. I'm good friends with a lot of folks there. And
Mhm.
so I knew I was like somewhat of a front runner. And so the day comes, I studied for a month on data structures and algorithms, but
Okay.
the because it was my first Fang position, I didn't know exactly what to study for. So I was just like studying whatever. Um, and then on top of that, they also have like the communication style that they almost weigh like as much, if not more, than the actual tech stuff.
Cool. It's good to know.
Yeah. Brought me in. First one was communication. It went really well. He even like gave me tips on like how to make sure that I like they want you to succeed because obviously they've invested time in you.
Hmm.
Second one was technical. It was an easy question, and I still look back to it. And I like froze. Live coding is like, here's a random question, and I'm like,
Oh.
it could be anything. What could it be? And she's like, it's this. Like, make a dictionary and do some simple stuff.
Okay.
And like, hands were just frozen. Um, so it was so bad, and then like, she was super helpful, but it was so bad that at the end of it, she was like, you know what? Let's take 15 minutes. Let's just
Mhm.
shake it out, and
So it was just like
uh,
you knew how to do it. You were just nervous.
oh yeah, even till this
Okay.
day, like I'm just
Interesting.
like, why was that so hard?
Okay.
And you can study the algorithms, but it's hard to prep for live coding.
Yeah. Absolutely.
After that, it switches up another communication style one, and
Hmm.
then one more communication one with like a little bit of tech in there. It was with Miguel from on the Amplify team. He's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um, and then the final one, like people were like dropping hints, like, "Hey, we see the lineup of who you're going to be interviewing with, and this person right here is they're gonna push you a little bit, so make sure you come with it." You
Okay.
know, just to like mentally prepare you. So like, of course, I'm freaking out now.
Yeah. Of course.
I get on the call and he's very direct. He gives me the technical problem. It was um, given an operation, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was like given an operation that um, has so many successes and so many failures. How do you measure the P99 of the success rate? And I'm like, what the hell
What?
is P99? First of all, for those of you that aren't aware, like to throw just a little bit of tech in this conversation,
Yeah.
P99 is like the allowable percentage. So P, the percentage,
Hmm.
and 99 is like what is the allowance, the tolerance there.
Okay.
So it'd be like if a customer was like, hey, we can't use this service because it might fail. We can't have any failures.
Okay.
But like realistically, if you were to like tell your boss, like, well, what if we had one failure every million? They'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine. I was like, okay, so we can have some failures. What is it? So you find out the P99. What's that 99th percentile?
Okay.
I had to calculate that, and I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Funny enough, I figured that one out, wrote tests for it, and that was one where I did pretty decent on.
Okay.
Um, Recruiter called me back like 4 days later. They were like, they loved your personality. You didn't score so high on the technical parts, and that's sorry for you.
Yeah.
And but that one, it hurt hard because I was like, I've never like interviewed with a top 5 company like that. I've interviewed with enterprises, and I've always done well. And that was the first time where I was just like, yeah, I like sucked at that one. But I guess I didn't do that bad, but I took it bad.
Rejection, man. It's I I
It's a
think like
beast.
if I ever had to like go back into a technical job, like if ever wanted to get back into like some engineering gig or something,
Yeah.
like I would have to prep so much because I'm like the funny thing is like once you're in the role, you're not going to do stuff like
You
what
don't
you're getting interviewed in ever.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like and then
Maybe. I don't know. Not
that
I mean, you're not the algorithms and data structures part.
right. It's like getting into it is getting into that stuff is like it's a proper industry in its own. Like the whole technical interview prep is like there's like books about it and courses and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then once you're in it, you don't use it at all. Well, not at all, right? But
At
I just
Amazon
think like
scale, it probably would come up, but like that's Amazon though. I mean, who's all interviewing for like actually working at Amazon compared to the entire field? It doesn't come up. Amazon, Facebook, like those are pretty top places. For most of the places, you're not going to deal with that stuff.
that's true. That's why I encourage people to go for like I mean, if unless they absolutely want to work at those places, I'm like totally go for that.
Yeah.
I've personally never been interested really. The only like big company that I would probably like ever be interested in working in is Microsoft, but besides that, I don't really have like any interest in the other ones.
Yeah.
But like I encourage people to go for like the smaller size companies, mid-size, because they're a bit more open to providing opportunities and like not
Hmm.
making you go through like 6 rounds. 6 rounds? That's
My brain was mush. Like it was 7 hours. And so at
it's
the
a
end
whole
of it,
day.
yeah, at the end of it, it's the hardest part. And like my brain is already frazzled
Yeah.
because you deal with a lot of like, what would you do in this situation scenario? And how did you handle a situation like this? And there's only so many stories that I can come up with. So it's uh
Uh,
it's
you
tough.
yeah, like oh, like what's one they ask a lot? Oh, can you tell me about a time that you
Like
received
resolve the conflict.
received negative feedback? How did you handle that?
Yeah.
And like, do you have a go-to scenario? I always have to like come up with something like, okay, I'm gonna say this, and like maybe even if it's like you make up like a portion of it or something like that. It's like so silly.
I do, but then the next person, like if the first person is like, tell me about a time you had a difficult situation and you resolved it.
Oh, it's like a group thing, like
No,
the
it's
interview.
it's it's one on one, but then
Okay.
like the next person, they'll ask you a question and they'll be like, if the other person was like, tell me about a time you handled a difficult situation, the next person is like, tell me about a time you had a conflict in your work. And it's like, this is what the last person asked me, just like phrased differently. Like
Do you think they do that on purpose?
yeah, they do because you're supposed to have different answers. And so advice for folks in the crowd, like you're supposed to have different answers and you're
It's good. It's
supposed
good to
to
know.
um ask them questions and even bring up the fact that it's similar to what you said before. Because then they can ask you like their
I see.
job
Yeah,
really is to make you look good, but they put it on you to make
you
sure
got to
that you
help
don't
them to
exactly.
help you look good.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Here's a good comment here. Everyone thinks they need to interview at Fang, but underestimates the value of getting their foot in the door somewhere else less prestige. You know what? Like I never so okay, so maybe I have no interest in Amazon or like those big companies because I think like just like the way my resume is, like they'll never look at me, right? And then I'm just like, well, I don't want to work for you anyway. So so I kind of just think like that. And also it's because like not having any degree at all, um, and stuff like that. You know, I can't hit that check mark, so it's immediately like once you submit, they're like, oh yeah, we're not even gonna pay attention to you, that kind of thing. But I think there is a lot of value to
Hmm.
not letting not thinking like you're too good or something like that to apply to like the smaller places,
Yeah,
because when you're at smaller places and you have smaller teams, you can also have like more attention on like your development. Not to say that
exactly.
that doesn't happen at the bigger companies, but it's like you can ask more questions because there's like one like lead or one manager or whatever to like a bunch like less engineers and would be at bigger teams. Like there's a
Definitely.
lot of benefit to being like starting small and then going um and that kind of stuff.
Someone said
This is awesome. Oh, thank you.
on Twitter last week, they said, um, I don't know who needs to hear this, but the company that would treat you the best is probably one you've never heard of before. And
Absolutely.
it rang so true because we
Absolutely.
have Fang in our minds, or we have like our local big companies, like John Deere is big where I'm at.
Hmm.
Um, but it's like some little like I don't want to say startup, but just a little company that does something very particular
Yeah.
that values company culture and inclusivity and
They care about you a little bit more, that
exactly.
kind of thing. It's you're not someone that you can be easily replaced because when you think about it, so many people are applying to these massive companies. It's like, oh, if you like don't make it to round 5, like we'll just have someone else. Like someone else eventually will. Like we don't
Yeah.
have to go out and look for talent. And like these smaller places, like when I was a cloud engineer at, it's like the small place, like you would never expect like a tech company to be there, but it was
Hmm.
cool. Like they had snacks all the time. There was a ping pong table that had video games.
Yeah.
They were cool with letting us work from home as long as we got stuff done. And I mean, it was like a great gig. And then like because of like my manager there being so cool, he put me on like as many projects as I could possibly handle. I
Nice.
got like so much exposure. I feel like if that wouldn't have happened at like a bigger place, I can't say it wouldn't have, but like I'm very grateful for that small place experience kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, the interview process is so never. Do you have any other interview stories?
Um,
Good ones?
yeah, I have good ones and I have bad ones. I would say the maybe we can talk about like the negotiation stage
Yeah,
of
do
like
it.
yeah, the whole money aspect. So one thing that you should never do, and I've had my fair share of interviews and offers thrown my way. So as somebody who has dealt with this and dealt with it poorly and successfully, never throw out your number in the interview because they'll ask you like, hey, what are you trying to make at this position? Never
Mhm.
give them a number. Like never. Like no matter what. Just don't do it.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, because it's their job to like obviously if you throw out a number, then you don't know if it's too high or too low, right? And they
Mhm.
don't have to go any higher than that. You just put your max out there. So if the position is for, I don't know, like 110, um,
And you say
then
like 75,
and you're like 75, they're like,
you're gonna get
awesome.
80 and you're gonna feel like, whoa, I got a good deal out of it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, right? We'll give you 80 and we'll give you like a $2,000 sign-on bonus. And you're like tweeting about it, great
Yes.
company. And they're like having their meeting, like, great, we just saved $30,000 a year.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
that's a great tip. Yeah, definitely.
so then the follow-up is like, well, then what do you do when they ask?
Mhm.
And you don't really deflect, but you leave it open. And you could say things such as, I just want to be paid. I guess the very first question should be, what is the range?
Mhm.
And that way conversation shifts back to them and they're like, it's um what do they say? It's commensuratory, or it's fair compensation. So what were you thinking? And then like they just threw the back into your court, and it's like this game where you're going back and forth. But as long as you can just be like, what's the range?
Mhm.
It depends, and just say, that would depend on the other benefits, what bonuses are in place. And then when they tell you those bonuses and all the other benefits that come with the package, you say, okay, so what is the range that I have to work with?
Mhm.
Or you can say things like, um, well, what's another good one that I've said before? Um,
I'm trying to
I don't
think
know.
like what I can't give any good advice in this because I've always given like a like always ask me like what are you looking for and I just tell them. But
Yeah.
that's like me being like naive. Also like one thing I will say is like when you're just like I don't know getting your foot in the door in that first job, you like feel
Hmm.
so bad like oh if I give them a number that's too high they're maybe not going to like even want to interview me. You're kind of like scared,
Yeah.
right?
That's your opportunity to be like, what's the range? because like you're right, you don't want to give them a too high number. So then just you tell me what I have to work with. Another good one that I just thought of is and I just forgot it. Great. um you could be like, well, this is a newer position for me.
Mhm.
So I'm not familiar with this. And so I mean, therefore give me the range that I have to work with. Or I just want to make sure that I have a certain market value and that I have my family is well taken care of. So what is the range? Like you're always asking for that range, and then
What
that way you can get to that part. And
so
nobody's go ahead.
you could say something like, "Oh, I'm looking to make market value."
I would. That's tricky because we're remote. So it's like
Ah,
whose market? Whose
yeah, you're
market are we
right.
working
Damn.
with?
I'm trying to find a solid answer here.
Yeah, it's like I live in Iowa. So if they're living based in Seattle,
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, we'll give you your market range. Like,
That brings up an interesting conversation. I saw that maybe on Twitter, someone saying like, "Oh, just if your company's based in like California or something like that, some Silicon Valley, but
yeah,
you live in somewhere like more cheaper, like those companies should strive to give the same salary to like everybody and not
hmm
depend on like what your location is." So that yeah, that's interesting. I haven't really thought about it, but yeah, that salary question is. I'm trying to think. When's the last
Caroline
time I
brought
did
up a
that?
good one too, where it's like never give your previous salary because it's irrelevant.
Yeah, it
Like
doesn't matter.
even if you're looking at the same field, I'm going from front end developer to front end developer. It's still irrelevant. Like, what is your company culture like? What are your benefits like? Um,
There's much more to salary than or like to actually accepting a job is than just salary, I think.
yeah,
That's another thing we can get into, but you should call the company's HR to check their salary range. Someone will give it to you.
that's tricky because not all states legally have to do that.
Yeah, that's especially here. It's like, um, yeah, you're right. You meant never give your previous salary. Thankfully, it's now legal in Massachusetts.
Yeah. Also, so yeah, like where you're at,
Here's a good one. Just make sure you know the average pay for the job. Yeah, this is absolutely do your research before you
definitely.
like talk to anybody about a job. Definitely know your value.
Don't be
That's a
afraid to
good like
reach out to like past and current employees there either. So one of the biggest aspects, if you don't have a certification and no degree, is to just grow your network.
yeah,
And that's going to be your ticket
tech
to get
Twitter.
into the front door. But yeah, just reach out to them. Hey, so and so, what's the range? What, help me out.
Don't I like this. Don't be intimidated by any company name. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to say about being very confident, even if it's just like a phone call
hmm
and like not coming off as like a pushover. I think it's hard though when you're like getting started and you're just like, yeah, please hire
It's
me.
tough.
I'll I'll
Yeah.
I'll work for whatever.
It's your first gig and you are not in tech and then you're trying to make like that tech money. You'll take anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I did my first tech job at least.
Yeah, I was happy. I was like, "Wow, you wanna pay me this much? Oh my goodness."
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you know what's another interesting conversation is how do you go? Because you mentioned, like, best way to, like, raise your salary is by changing your company, like, going somewhere else.
yeah.
Um, that's another interesting thing, like, how do you negotiate a raise? I have some experience in this area, but I'd love to hear
Yeah,
what
for
you think.
sure. I was working at the newspaper company as a data visualizer. I was making 32,000 a year.
Mhm.
And I was doing front-end data visuals and using Node.js whenever I had to. So I'm doing like development work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But I'm in the newspaper industry. They're not going to pay me developer salary. So I went to them and I knew that the hardest thing for me as a developer was to get my first year in being self-taught. So there wasn't much wiggle room for me to negotiate.
Mhm.
But I went to them and I was like, I should make like 65,000 is what I went to them with.
Okay.
And they were like you're asking for more than double your salary. We're not gonna do that.
Mhm.
And I was like, all right, I'm just letting you know that I'm gonna be looking for other places. I was super upfront, like probably like too upfront. But I was like, I'm gonna be looking at like actual tech positions and no hard feelings, but that's just
Yeah,
where I'm at. I went to my consulting place and I was making 75,000
yeah.
when I got there. And I was doing front end dev work and I was cool, like super happy. They had me do some instructional content for them as well.
Mhm.
And I ended up leading a class. So that was like my breakthrough into teaching.
'Kay.
2 years go by and another company saw my content. They were like, look, we'll give you 95,000 if you work for us. And I was like, this is great. I'm gonna go ahead and put my 2 weeks in like today
Yeah.
and go with this company because that's a huge raise.
Yeah.
I go to them and they were like, wait a minute, like we have future plans in the pipeline for you. So how about you stay with us? You know, how much are you looking to make? And I was like, well, they're offering me 95,000.
Mhm.
They were like 95,000 and we can keep you. I was like, yeah. And they were like, done. And like it was at that moment that the light bulb forever went on because I realized that they were always willing to pay me
Yeah.
20,000 more a year
Mhm.
for doing what I was already doing. I was
Mhm.
shorting myself.
Absolutely. You
It's
mentioned a
crazy.
couple of things in there that first of all, like when like your first year as a dev, you were like just trying to like find yourself, like situate yourself, make sure you, like you're kind of like building your own value to wherever you're at, right? And that
Yeah.
goes. So I at the place that I eventually became a cloud engineer at, I was hired to be like a sysadmin kind of thing, and that whole year I just like worked like I wasn't worried about like
Yeah.
being paid. I think I was making like 55,000 that year, and then I was like being put on like a bunch of like even up to like full stack development projects. Like I learned .NET because of there. I learned all the Azure stuff that I know because I was there and things like that. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna build up like my little like it's kind
Little
of like ammo.
portfolio.
Like my little ammo. Like, look, I've done all this for
Yeah.
you. You got to pay me more, right? So it wasn't even a year in, and I'm like, you got to pay me more. Like this is ridiculous. Like I'm doing
Yeah.
like so much. I'm like doing like 3 roles, and like you're paying me 55,000.
Oh yeah.
So I asked for like I don't know if you know me, like my girlfriend will tell you like I have like no filter in terms of like when I think something is fair, I'll just like blatantly say it. So like I want a 30% raise. And they were like, it's kind of like tough. Oh no, I don't think I said 30%. I think I said I wanted to make like at least $70,000 a year. Like
Hmm.
because and then someone mentioned this too in here. Like the whole package matters. I would accept slightly lower pay if I get more flexible schedule and full
Oh
remote.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was considering that too. Like I'd be willing to make a little bit less because I could work from home and like they were super cool and like if I need to take days off, they were cool with that too. Like it's like it was a great culture. Um so after like I don't know, that conversation went back and forth. They're like this much and I ended up making I think almost 80,000 like they raised me up to $80,000. And like once I hit that and then I got the promotion too. Once I hit that I'm like, man, I'm good for like the rest of my life kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then I noticed like, man, maybe I can do more because like you mentioned, like that thing is like your that idea gets into your brain. It's like you can always make more because like once you make this amount of money, you're worth this amount of money, and then moving forward, there's more for you to do, kind of
Exactly.
thing,
Yeah.
right? But it's like so scary because you can also get rejected. It could be like then just leave. But someone else mentioned like it's easier for them to keep you than to go hire someone else. Like keep
Yeah.
you and increase
And
your
cheaper.
salary than to go fully hire someone else, onboard someone else, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So you kind of if you're a good employee, you kind of always have that working for you where it's like it's better for them to keep you happy and keep you here and give you what you need versus like going to like fully someone else new. Man, the
Yeah.
chat's going crazy about this topic.
It
I think
is. It
we
is. That's a
I
good
think
point
we
though. Like you have to be a good employee. Like don't do
Oh,
this
absolutely.
if you're like,
If
not
you're
there yet.
lazy, you're not getting it done, or if you're like 2 weeks in, you're like, I want more money, like you look,
Yeah.
like chill. You're like, yeah, we all have to do like the grunt work. We all have to do the work that no one wants to do at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um what is there? Oh, Rishabh says, hey, do you know Rishabh?
Yeah. I am not formally, but we know each other through chat.
I gave Rishabh a link to join because he's like kind of like my permanent co-host. He's like always on these things because he's like super easy to talk to. I don't know if he's joining. Rishabh, if you're joining, just hop in anytime. Um, Jordan Peterson was talking about how to negotiate, and he mentioned say what they lose by not hiring you. Interesting. And you went in when have power negotiation, you have other options. Always having another offer helps. That's absolutely like being able to say, hey, I like you mentioned, like I have
Yeah.
95,000 offer. I'm gonna go if you don't like meet me there. Have you
Yeah,
ever?
I would say like the ultimatum approach. Be careful with that one.
Yeah, that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard. You got this. Never shy away from posting just because you haven't hit every item they're looking for. Yeah, that's true. Apply for anything that interests you. I think
Yeah,
that's a good.
definitely. To talk on that last comment, keep in mind that as they're interviewing as they're interviewing you, like you're also supposed to be interviewing them.
That's a good topic.
So
It's
ask
business
the
both ways.
exactly ask the tough questions. One thing I always ask them is like, what about this company isn't going well and why isn't it fixed? And like it lets them know like you're not just there to just be there and try to ask the questions so that you get a right response, but like put and grill them. Like don't be afraid to do so.
Yeah, ask them like why they work there, why they like working there, like what's the
Yeah.
communication like, have you ever had an issue and how was it resolved, like what's the culture like, all that kind of stuff matters because
Yep.
like okay, it's easy to think like oh I'm gonna make $80,000 here, I'm gonna be good, but like when you're making $80,000, but when it's like a toxic culture or a place or
Exactly.
people that you don't like working with, those $80,000 are quickly gonna turn into like not worth it.
Or it's
Um,
$80,000 salary and you're thinking that that's 40 hours a week, but it's 60.
it's like
And
24/7. Yeah.
exactly, it's like, oh well, you didn't factor that into your pay.
Oh boy, we're gonna get into some heat. You can't scale an application without math. Oh, we got some fire here. If you
We
don't
got
know any math, oh man.
woo.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to get into this heat right now. Uh, if you don't know math, you can only build the. Well, I guess I build useless applications.
That's right. It's like let's
Well,
do
I
it
guess
then.
I guess. Oh, here's a good one. I always ask, "What's the worst part about working at this company?" Yeah,
Love it. Caroline,
that's.
what's your Twitter? I feel like I should be following you on Twitter. You're
I
posting
think
some good
she also
content.
has a YouTube channel, I think. Put it in the let me see if I can find it. I don't know if I sub but put your YouTube link in the chat and then I'll put it on here. But did we miss? Oh, here's what's your take on contract hire versus full time right off the bat? Contract hire is like you work for a certain amount and then they hire you, kind of thing. I don't think I've ever done that.
Um, it can go both ways. So you can be strictly just on contract. So like, well, we're gonna bring you on for 6 months, no
Hmm.
contingency. So maybe we'll hire you, maybe not.
Hmm.
Versus full time, like you get the whole package deal. I don't have a take. It's whatever is right for you. If
Yeah,
you're in a position where your lifestyle and your family can be like, hey, 6 months from now, are we okay with that uncertainty? Then at that point, it's no different aside from maybe having to buy benefits. Um,
yeah.
outside of that, there's not too much to worry about.
The contract in the consulting life, the one thing is like there's no limit on the money that you can make. I know Nader talks about this often. It's like he was making like crazy amounts of money
Yeah,
consulting. But then again, if it's a model that fits for you, that's great. Like when I was doing it, it was like it was decent. Like if I kept doing it, kept grilling it, like kept going over. So it's also like you're also your own salesperson. You're also in your own sales team because you have to like constantly put yourself out there to get more contracts and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, obviously there's like no limit to how much, and then eventually you could turn that into like your own like consulting thing or
agency or
whatever. Yeah, and that
yeah.
kind of thing. Um, but yeah, yeah. Again, it depends on like what you want to do. Both of them have like benefits. Um, Caroline says I don't do much Twitter. That's actually I've been trying to get off Twitter lately. It's like I have this extension that like removes retweets and kind of stuff, and it's been a little better like that. But like, oh man, Twitter lately has just been like killing my productivity.
It gets like there's a lot of regurgitated content from there,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
packaged up with a different username.
Let's see. This person keeps coming in about math. I don't know if I want to share those comments on.
What I will say about David's comments, I appreciate you leaving the comments, though. That's one of the things that I will always defend is when you say things like better, useless, the ultimatums in any direction, right?
Yeah.
The superlatives.
Hmm.
So useless is relative.
Hmm.
If I'm building something without math and it is supporting my family, then it's not very useless, and that's
Right.
as far as I need it to scale.
Yeah.
So I would say while David, I'm sure is very capable, and I'm glad he's very passionate about math. Um, Dev and tech is a big field, so not everything will apply. Your mileage may vary.
Oh, we got our permanent co-host here, Rishabh.
Hey guys.
What
Is
up,
math
Richard?
is math important to software development?
Yeah,
Coming
I
in
saw
hot.
that. I saw that.
Uh,
To some extent, but yeah, let's not get into it.
Richard,
yeah.
nice to formally meet you.
Oh
Hello.
yeah, yeah. Talk.
Yeah. Hey
Introduce
Michael.
yourselves.
Yeah, this is I think our first time meeting like on a chat. kind of situation. But yeah, no, I have been following his work on Twitter a lot, and you've been huge inspiration for content creation. I love your videos, by the way.
Oh, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're huge when it comes to like getting certifications. So you have like
Yeah,
every
writing
single
too.
one.
You're killing it with like the blogs. But you're being consistent with that kind of stuff. That's cool too.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Twitter is kind of toxic too. Twitter is super toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you gotta have the right filters and right people to follow, which is tough. Because like somebody will like something, it'll show up on your timeline.
In Cloudland, it's like, oh, I have all 12 AWS certifications, like blah blah blah, and then it's like just like that all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah, it's becoming more and more like what LinkedIn is, I think, right now.
LinkedIn. do you all? Yeah, I know Rishabh, you use LinkedIn. Do you use LinkedIn, Michael?
I need to use it more, just because that's where a lot of cloud developers are and consulting places. But I don't like it. I don't. Every time I log in, there's a picture of like somebody congratulating themselves because they took a picture of like a homeless person, and they're like, I shared $20 with them, and
Man.
and I'm just like, oh, it's not a good look. It's not a good look.
Antonio Lofiego, he's like part of like 100 Days of Cloud. I don't know if you know him, Michael. I know Rishabh knows him. He has like this funny take where it's like someone will pass like a very simple like Udemy course or like just like one module, one video, and they'll like post about it. I'm like very happy to share with my network that I finished watching this video kind of thing. Oh man. Someone says I love Python. I think Rishabh's a big Python, right? Are you big into Python, or are you JavaScript too?
I'm trying to learn Python, but yeah, I'm a fanboy now. It's pretty good.
I have a degree in physics, and honestly, I don't use much of the math I learned when I do software development. Oh, we're still doing that math thing. See, it's like these topics that are like this is like what tech Twitter is.
Yeah,
pretty much. I feel like we might have missed a couple of, because it was like going like nonstop those comments when we were talking about the interviewing. Rishabh, do you have any interviewing stories? Any good ones?
Not really. No, as I said, like I've been with the same company almost for 5 years. I've only had few chances of setting interviews, but I would say that do go out for interviews because once you're like out of the game, it gets rusty.
Well, yeah,
that's a good
interviewing
point.
is a skill set.
Yeah. Even if you're happy with where you're at, like it's still fun to in part of your skill set to interview and keep those soft skills sharp, those technical aspects sharp. For me, I was doing a little bit of the technical assessment when I was at one of my employers. So me interviewing helped sharpen my skills as an interviewer, which made me better in that regard.
Oh, definitely.
The last interview I did was for the job that I have now, so I don't.
How'd that go? I'm super curious. Like A Cloud Guru, ACG, as you say.
ACG, baby. Shout out. No. How did that? So I've always had like a soft spot for like Linux Academy and ACG because I learned like all the stuff because of them. Like back like because they're like OGs in this space.
Yeah.
Like back in like 2016, like they were like pretty much the only ones around, right, doing like quality stuff. And I always kind of like I always wanted to make technical content, but I never really thought I was like who's gonna listen to me, right? So like when I started doing the YouTube videos and like people were actually like, oh, you're actually kind of good at this, I kind of like thought like, oh, maybe I can actually like make this into something. And this kind of goes full circle with like getting not burnt out, but like starting to create content that it wasn't necessarily like what I 100% wanted to do on my YouTube. Like I was just like making stuff that like people asked for. And I was like, okay, well, I don't necessarily think I want to go back into engineering because like I did that. I did the consulting thing. It just doesn't feel right, but I like love creating the technical content. And I was like, all right, where do I make this? Like how do I turn this into something, right? And I wanted to be on a team. I didn't want to necessarily do it on my own. And it was just like a bunch of like variables there. So I had initially spoken with ACG back in like the summer, and it was like for an Azure architect kind of position. But like things were just like I was like doing like so many interviews in that time, and like I was on podcasts, and like I was recently on Azure Friday then, so like I was just getting so many consulting things. I was like, let me see this through. And then when that stuff started to slow down, I was like, all right, so like what do I like now what? So then I talked with ACG again, and they had this different position, which is the one I'm actually in now, the community one. And they're like, yeah, so it's pretty much like, you're creating like content on cloud, but it's like more like short form, which is pretty much what I was doing on YouTube. But you're going to be working with a team. So then I was still kind of like iffy, but then I went through the interview process and I met with like a bunch of the team, and it was like probably like, all right, so disclaimer, everyone's going to think that I'm paid to say this kind of stuff or like that. I'm not. I'm being 100% honest. Like the interview process with them was like the best interview situation that I've ever been through. Like I genuinely felt like just like a conversation, and I wasn't being like, grilled, like because you have those situations too, because I've been through like technical interviews and stuff like that, where you just feel like you're being questioned, or it's like you committed a crime and it's like you have to answer this kind of thing. It was like just like it was so fluid that once I went through that process, like the couple of rounds or whatever, I was like, yeah, that's like a no brainer. And yeah, then I kind of like got pushed into like creating content right away with them, which was great. And then like now we're doing like a bunch of really cool stuff that I'm looking forward to.
Nice.
And I would want to see like more people like y'all like come into like tier, but like we don't really have it. I think in like
my DMs are open.
Oh, no lie. I was gonna tell you like, hey, if you're thinking about it, I think like we have a great culture in there too. I'm gonna stop talking about ACG just because I feel like it's always like a plug kind of thing. It's like I try to not like when it's not ACG content, I try to not talk about them just because like people get tired of it. But yeah. Anyway, but let's check the chat. Python for automation is how I learned it. Python is a great like first like beginner language. It's like so easy to get into. Oh gosh, AWS is the king of cloud. I feel like this person is just like putting spicy commentary.
I see a great question from Caroline. Does anyone else have a timer for promotions with companies? Mine is 2 years, increasing every year as I become more senior. If I don't get a promotion, I leave.
I like that.
Yeah, 2 years is a solid time frame.
Yeah.
Really? I feel like it's a lot.
Every year, like 1 year will get you for a lot of companies, 1 year is how long you need to be there to keep your sign-on bonus. So like you have to do like just past that, or to get your yearly bonus.
Yeah.
So then like one more year, and I don't know, you get your other yearly bonus and peace out. No, I mean you reevaluate.
Let's see. Does anyone timer? I feel like there was another one here. This one might be interesting. Can you discuss what applications you're working on? Is anyone building it? Rishabh, you might have some interesting stuff that you're working on.
Yeah. So I finally had some changes made to moose.rishabh.cloud, which is a Zoom clone. And I know we talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it in our last Hats in the Cloud. It looks way better now. And just like the CSS.
It's live right now?
No, it shouldn't be.
It
shouldn't be.
I was gonna open it and then show it too.
I have it deployed on AWS, so I often shut it down once like I'm happy with how it looks. I'll probably have it live like 24/7. The thing I'm trying to do with this, you don't have to log in. You don't have to like create meetings and stuff. You just pop in the URL and you get a link that's unique to you, and then you just share it.
That's like what
StreamYard.
services like that? Sort of like but you need an account for StreamYard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you don't need anything. Yeah, like Jitsi. I think Jitsi used to do it. I don't think you need an account with Jitsi.
Have you heard of OBS Ninja? I think it's like
I think I have.
It's something like that. It's like you just pop in there and then you can use that URL to bring in as like a source into OBS.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
kind of like that. That's cool.
But yeah, and the Azure Cloud Resume Challenge.
How's it going?
I haven't had a chance to look at the Cosmos DB stuff. Like once I figured out the front end, it's been sitting on that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are you gonna? Did you do the function yet?
No, not yet. I'm probably gonna use Python though.
Python. A couple of people were gonna use Python. I don't think anyone's gonna do in .NET, which is interesting because like my solution isn't in .NET.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. I feel like someone was talking about. Look, AWS is king, but honestly, I think Azure has the user experience down compared to AWS. Yeah, Azure UX is way better than AWS.
Yeah. Hands down.
Yep. Azure's gonna grow. I mean, it's already growing. I'm gonna sound biased because I'm gonna take this off.
Statistically, like you're right.
Yeah. Have you thought of security aspect to this? Just put it in the cloud. It's fine.
Yep.
You know what's interesting? I think we talked about this on the last stream where it's like security is one of those things that we all know is important, but I feel like no one has a solid grasp on it unless you're like a dedicated security professional. Like we have a grasp on like code and some like cloud stuff, but like security.
It's you'll set yourself apart in the field if you get the fundamentals, or at least you understand what you need to be thinking about. Like even that goes a long way, because you're right. It's like we just want to build the product. And the sad thing about security is it doesn't provide a whole lot of business value. It secures your business, but the actual value that you deliver to your customers makes it a second thought.
Unless you get owned and then you're like, oh,
then
your data gets leaked, and then you're like, you lost all your business.
Sure.
Like I happen to be in security, so I always talk about it. Yeah, cloud. So cloud. Someone was talking about this combo: cloud plus security. There's just like so much money in that like one little space there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like in order to like learn that kind of stuff, I just would need to dedicate myself like full on to that. And so, what about all the other million projects that I have going on? Right.
I feel like you have to be on top of things. With
that
vulnerabilities and security flaws that are released kind of every day.
Well, that's a big advantage of working with serverless technologies, right? As opposed to containers, so that you don't have to patch your OS and keep up with all the security updates. You just leave it to the managed cloud provider that you're using.
Yeah, but then like they have issues as well, or like they go down. Like Azure had like the AD outage, and then the DNS outage this past week, and then like 2 weeks before that the AD outage and stuff like that. Oh, that's another good question. Multi-cloud.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about that? I think we talked about this last time, but I'm curious to hear your take, Michael.
There's another word floating around with multi-cloud, right? Because it can mean two things. Having your stuff on-prem and off-prem versus being with multiple cloud providers. That's
hybrid cloud.
Hybrid cloud.
Hybrid is on-prem and then one like.
That's what I get mixed up. Okay, so multi-cloud, multiple cloud providers. I think it's too early. We're gonna get to a point where you can sort of cherry pick the services that you want with the cloud provider, but I don't think we're there yet. And I think what's forcing us to get there is a lot of scares about vendor lock-in. But
how do you avoid that though?
I don't think you do. I think you just say like, this is the stack that we're using. Take the front end, for example. Like you say vendor lock-in, but you're using a React app, and now like that's your lock-in. You're vendor locked in right there.
Alf was talking about like how there's so many dependencies on certain libraries. It's like if one library goes down, like so many apps go down or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no matter where you look at it or what piece of your application you think about, you have some sort of vendor lock-in.
Exactly.
And Azure was always down. LOL. Huge fan of cloud diversity. It's not always down. It's had a rough couple of weeks. It's not always down.
The takeaway from that though, outages and even like within a cloud provider, do you scale to multiple regions? Do you scale across multiple accounts? I think the takeaway there is that you scale out to a reasonable extent, And if that part goes down, like you're usually in pretty good company. Like it's nobody like your service sucks because you're down. It's like, oh, all of these sites are now down because they were reliant on like this main region.
Yeah, and someone mentioned hybrid cloud. So the thing about hybrid cloud is like everyone thinks like, yeah, on prem, you know, you have your data on prem, you're super secure. But it's also like a lot of those servers are like really old, and a lot of like sysadmins don't maintain them. So you also have that issue. It's like, well, we're dealing with like because like just personal experience, we're dealing with like 2008 R2 servers. It's like, you know, 18 years old at this point, 19 years old at this point. So you have like, no matter where you go, there's not one perfect solution, right? Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, one cloud, serverless, they all have their faults. I think the solution to multi-cloud is for vendors to have two separate clouds, so it's always working.
That so but you maximize or you spread out your blast area, right? So by going with two separate cloud vendors, now you're dependent on like what happens if something goes down over here, even though like the rest is up. And to the other point, because it's all about balance, if I have to maintain two separate cloud infrastructures, I need to have a team that is familiar with two separate cloud providers.
Yeah.
Granted, there's a lot of overlap,
Yeah.
but especially when you work with like on-prem stuff, like the greatest, I guess the most expensive cost to any organization is the dev team. So if you need to have all these specialists, then that's going to be like your most costly aspect to your business.
Yeah, it's easy to say like, oh, just be multi-cloud, but like there's so many aspects to that you don't.
Yeah, we're not
really.
cheap.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. Yeah, definitely not. Because and then because you have to support, and then you also have to support that. You have to learn it. You have to re-educate your team, and then you have to constantly keep up with two clouds.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. There's like really no answer to anything. How do you design around Azure AD downtime? Well, when you think about that, like AD's in everything. In terms of Azure, like how that, yeah. Oh man. At least we got past that like math conversation.
No, good talk. I hate to be that guy, but the missus is requesting my presence.
It's fine. You've been on for like 2 hours with me. So.
Around this time we like to watch our shows and talk about our days. We haven't had a chance to do that just yet, but the kids are asleep and I do have to bounce.
All right, man. Well, it's been an absolute blast having you. Risha, do you want to stay on for a little bit longer?
Sure.
All right, cool. So I'll stay on a little longer. But,
thanks for having me. I'm open to do this anytime. This is a lot of fun.
We'll do random ones. If you're available, I'll like send you a link and hop on.
Sure. Thanks, chat. I'll catch you all next time.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Oh man. We want to answer those flaming questions now. The math ones. I swear, I think this person is trolling. I really do think this person is trolling. Because then they said like AWS is king.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you did your resume thing. You got your front end done. It's deployed. I know that. Now you got to do the function.
Yes.
Have you worked with Cosmos DB at all before?
No.
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 Yes. Yeah. It's like, I remember when I was building the prototype, I like did all the front end and then I like left it there for a while. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do the back end eventually, and I just didn't do it for like 2 weeks, and then I had like a deadline. I'm like, oh man, I gotta get this done.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably have some time to dig through it this weekend, so fingers crossed. But I was looking at the Discord chat in the resume challenge channel. It's pretty good. I think, it's really great to see like so many people trying to participate, and I guess I'll be just lucky because I think there are 3 or 4 people who are trying to do it with Python, so it should be easy.
And I'm excited to see those implementations because I haven't used Python with functions at all. It's like I've always just stuck to .NET. Maybe I should try doing it in Python. Because like I know all the pieces. Really, what would only change is the syntax. Everything else would be and then like obviously the testing would be done a little differently. But I have it fully implemented in .NET now, so it's like it's just words that are different. Yeah, maybe I will do that. I don't know. I probably have. We'll see. Yeah, interesting. Oh my goodness. This combo has been so informative. Oh, cool. Thank you, DJ. Did we miss? Oh, here we go. I meant Microsoft provides 2 separate clouds, so updates aren't rolled to the entire environment. But don't they do that already with like availability zones and such? Yeah, aren't availability zones like the definition is like no two are going to be up like in different regions. They're not going to be updated at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's how they roll out updates.
You can't have 2 different clouds that are fault tolerant because there's not a solid way to do it. I think there must be some kind of standardization, and we can't start with a multi-cloud. Can start with a multi-cloud endpoint. Power. That's how AZs work. Yeah, I knew it. PowerShell functions are the best. I haven't done PowerShell in a while. I think when was the last thing I did with PowerShell? I was doing Azure runbooks or something like that, and then I just ran like a simple restart VM command or something.
Mm-hmm.
Though PowerShell, have you ever used it? Like it's easy to read. Like literally, it's like kind of like reading a sentence kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah, but cool. What else is going on? How's are you still on call or doing that kind of stuff? Spending weekends?
Yep. Yeah. Still on call.
Are you still are you fully moved into like your DevOps role now?
No, not yet. It'll be long. Because it's a whole product that we will be leaving behind. So it'll take some time. Either we find people who could support it beside us, or we just gradually move.
So are you doing like sort of like the responsibilities of 2 roles kind of thing?
I won't say 2 because like my time is divided, so it's fine, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, like I have 60% of my time goes into the old stuff, and then 40% is new, and it changes every week. Like sometimes it's 100% DevOps.
So. I like that though, like because you're not stuck to doing one thing for like all the time.
Definitely, yeah.
It keeps you like piques your interest and like keeps you on your toes. Maybe later on in my career, I would be like, oh, I just want to do like one thing.
Yeah.
Or like now, like while you're learning and stuff like that. How are your certifications going? What are you studying for now?
AZ-104. So
the admin.
The admin, yeah. I think. I have it on the 30th this month. So
you have like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll clear it on the first try.
Oh, now there's a PowerShell versus Bash conversation going. PowerShell is king. Bash is king. I've been using Bash a lot lately. It's cool. Definitely learning the command line, knowing how to use that is like super powerful. I don't find myself using like my file manager as much anymore. But get it, Rishabh.
Thanks, Michael. But yeah, I think knowing both of them is really good. Like if you know Bash, awesome. If you know PowerShell, awesome. But if you know both,
Someone just gave me $2. Azure can't compete with AWS. Oh my gosh, Azure can't compete with AWS as far as jobs go. I don't know. In my area, there's a lot of Azure jobs. It's like a lot of the smaller mid-sized shops that have like Microsoft 365. Like it's easier for them to move to Azure because they're kind of already. Already in the ecosystem. David's probably internal to his employee. Oh, chill, man. I like this. Use the tool that works for you. At the end of the day, they are tools. One thing I will say about Bash is that it's on so many more things than like the majority of Linux servers, the majority of like things that actually run things are gonna have Bash like installed by default. Like you don't have to like install anything, set up anything. Right? It's like you can just go in there and type commands. That's one benefit I will say. It's more of like a universal language kind of thing. But yeah, you have to learn the tool that is like for the job.
True. And I feel like it's like you said, it's everywhere. like even with application architecture, either they're like in the load balancers, or if you're using proxies, there's probably going to be Linux, and then you're using Bash. Even though your site may be served, like it's a .NET site being served by an IIS server, but still, like you would have something in front sitting. That's a Linux box.
There's a little Linux in anything you're doing, literally anything. Even if you think about like you're using the Cloud Shell and like
definitely,
there's like this Linux in there, like like everything has a little bit of it. Exactly, and Azure and Microsoft literally gives these company Azure resources for free. Oh my goodness, the discounts that Azure offers to these shops that use AD already are like insane. And like the licensing that you can save for like your Windows servers, like migrating them into cloud and stuff like that. Yeah, I feel that I also think that's why it's like that stuff kind of like jobs in Azure are picking up.
Yeah.
I like it. But then again, I'm biased. Like I go into AWS console, like I was working on a couple of videos the other day, and I'm like, it doesn't feel as fluid. Maybe that's it. But that's just like a UX thing. Like if you're doing everything via like the command line anyway, it's like it's just like I guess the UI doesn't really matter. Let's see. Now you can use Linux on Windows as well. Like you can install it as an app, so it's you just did a blog post of. Let's put that on the.
Yeah.
Let me find it. What's your blog? Blog.rishabh?
Yeah, kumar.com.
We'll pull it up. You just did a post on WSL.
Yep. I had been waiting for it quite a while. I know someone requested it in 2019, maybe. When I was not even blogging, I only wrote like 2 blogs.
I saw that. I didn't know they did this. Like you can listen to the article. That's
yeah.
Cool. I like that you're doing like more like kind of like a life update in your post. Yeah, I went through this quickly. Yeah, I mainly now because I use Pop OS, I haven't really like been using WSL, but it seems to be like maturing well, and like people are actually like using it. Like
definitely
excited about it.
Yeah, I was so hyped when it first came out, and ever since then I've been using it. It's even like, and that's why I shared how I use it with like for development and stuff, which is awesome. And as you like, I don't know, I prefer Bash over PowerShell. So
yeah, I would agree with that. Well, I've been doing speaking about like cross-platform Windows stuff, I've been doing like a lot of .NET Core development on Pop OS, so like the Linux distro, and it's great. I haven't really run into any issues. Like the one issue I did run into is because you have like .NET Core, like the long term, which is 3, and then you have like .NET Core 5, and then there's like having like the different versions and like managing like your different SDKs and stuff on Linux. I was like having issues with that, but then I found this blog post by Scott Hanselman. And he like had it all done. I was like, perfect. After I figured that out, I was like, great.
He's a goat, to be honest. I wrote this blog post, and then because I like have it on my YouTube, and all of a sudden his YouTube video pops up, how to use WSL for Linux development on Windows.
That's such a good video. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, now I have to like plug this into my blog post and he's so like calming, like his voice is so calming.
I remember before doing Azure Friday, it was crazy because so he's like the kind of person that will just reach out to anybody to just help them out.
Yeah.
And then he had seen like the video that I made about like how I became a cloud engineer or something like that. And he's like, hey, I just saw your video. Would love to have you on Azure Friday. And I was like, first I went to I tapped on the profile. I'm like, this is no way this is him. Because if anyone's familiar with like, I guess like Windows space at all, like you'll know who he is. He's like, he's like massive. He's been around for a while. But anyway, so he's the kind of person that will just reach out to you and be like, hey, I'd love to like promote you just for free kind of thing. Like, we just want to help you out. Yep. So I was like, oh, do I need to prepare? Do I need slides? Like, he was like, no, don't worry about any of that. Right. And then the day of he sends me like a calendar invite. So the day of that, and then he's just like, just come in like 10 minutes and we'll just figure it out on the fly. I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like sweating. I'm like, what am I going to say? And then he opens up, he has this thing where he opens up like, what's it called? Like Notepad. like that's that basic text editor thing
Yeah.
on Windows. And he's like, yeah, let's talk about this. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like kind of like starstruck the entire time, like before talking, actually like going into the actual like recording. But he's such a cool guy. Like, and then he's like, yeah, don't be nervous. Like, you know, and that makes you kind of feel like more nervous, but he's so cool. And like, he's such a great teacher. And he does, it seems like I don't know if he actually does this, but it seems like he does his videos in like one take. Like he can teach anything in one take. Right. And he like owns, like if he makes mistakes or like has to apologize or anything, he'll like talk through it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no awkward. It's like amazing. It's like art. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. Just to stir the pot. Oh my goodness! Even to make a movie, I don't know who this person is. I do network automation via Python. Your channel showed up in my YouTube feed randomly. Yeah, that's how the algorithm works. It's just I can't I can't control that. In SoCal below 100K, you're in poverty. Yeah, absolutely. But like 100K where I live, you're like good. Like that's like salary is relative. Like success is relative. Too,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You'll be living in a box tent on the side of the road. Gas here. Oof. All right, this person is like to make it. Oh my goodness. All right, I think I'm gonna need to put you in a little timeout, my friend. Did we miss? Oh, I respect Bash a lot. Props to the OGs that did it before me. Like piping commands and like redirecting stuff because you build commands like pipelines and kind of things. It's amazing the stuff that you can get done.
Yeah.
I feel like if most developers knew more Bash, like they would be coding a lot less. Because like just think of like the power of something like grep or like or the awk command or the stream editor command, like that kind of stuff. Amazing. Did I miss anything else? I think we got it. We've been going on for like 2 hours, so we can stop any time now.
For sure. Yeah, I think Caroline somewhere mentioned that she'll also be doing the Cloud Resume.
Oh yes, that's what I wanted to bring up.
Tutorial this weekend, so I'm guessing she'll be out with a video. And she said,
here.
Yeah.
API management. Oh, API management. Fancy functions. Cosmos DB, Azure AD. Yeah. Wow. I'm excited to see this.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see this.
I'll wait for that video then.
Wait, I wonder what she's doing it in. Are you still on here? Are you doing it in Node, Python? Oh, maybe PowerShell. Ooh, that would be cool to see. I'd be excited to see API management functions, Cosmos DB, Azure AD. That's gonna be cool. Man, now I feel like to step up my game. All right, man. I might end up doing another one of these Sundays because there's a guest. Oh, you know Anais. We have a Discord together. She wanted to do one. We want to do one together this Sunday. I don't know. I might end up pushing it though. But as always, I'll send you a link.
Awesome.
To everyone else in the chat, thanks for hanging out. We had a pretty good turnout. We had like about 30 people here. So
yeah, it was like fun conversations about like salary progression and career progression.
When Michael started talking about the interviewing at Amazon, I was just like, oh, that was great. See, that's the kind of stuff that like you won't get into if you're like if it's like strictly like just like a technical podcast or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll talk soon and we'll get on this, or I don't know. See, I kind of want to start scheduling these just because I know people like the predictability, but it's also like then it starts feeling like homework kind of thing. Like you have to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a poll on YouTube if people want to like schedule them. We might, but all right, man. Talk soon.
Thanks for having me. Yep.
All right. Goodbye to the chat.